All right. Welcome back. We are GDD403, problem solving with data structures and algorithms, and it's week 5, part 2 of our broadcast and recording. We're talking about sorting algorithms. We just finished talking about the bubble sort, the selection sort, the insertion sort, and the bonus, the merge sort, which was a bit of a monster in terms of code, right? And now what I want to do is get right into that in-class exercise for today. So let's do that. That's in-class exercise time. Last week, what did we do? Let's take a look at what we did last week. We had, just going to pull up our Unity Hub. We had our in-class exercise 2. I want to continue with in-class exercise 2, but I want to make a copy of my project for this week. So how do I do that? Again, I'm going to go into my project folder. So you do this with me, please. This is a you do and me do kind of thing. I'm going to go into our in-class exercises here. And whenever we make a copy, remember the things that I said to you guys, please make sure that you destroy your builds folder. So get rid of it and get rid of your library folder. Let's take a look why. Library folder by itself, if I hover over it, is 484 megabytes. It's a lot. And the builds folder is can also be quite large. If you hover over the builds folder, it's also 5 megabytes, right? Assets folder takes up a lot of space, 7 megabytes. But between these two, these are the ones we want to get rid of. So I want to get rid of the library folder and the builds folder. Let's get rid of those two things and delete, please. Remember that the builds can always be regenerated and the library folder will be regenerated when we start a new Unity project. Okay, that's what it's going to be like. So I'm just going to go back here and I'm going to grab, now that I've deleted those things, you can see that the total size of the project is 8 megabytes. Way smaller, right? And I'm going to copy this thing and paste it in. And you're going to see that it's going to go down to, we're going to rename it to ICE3. ICE3. For all ICE exercises that we're doing, you need Git and GitHub. Please continue to give me the Git and GitHub link. That is something that you made from day one. And what we're doing is we want to put this up on GitHub, the changes that we just made, which is ICE3. Okay, so again, lots of ways to do this. I'm going to use command prompt for this. So here's my command prompt. And I'm going to go CD space. And again, I'm going to pull up that, you know, the ICE3, or sorry, the ICEs folder. So this is the ICEs folder, the entire ICEs folder. And I'm going to pull that in here. And you can see that when I've done that, I'm going to just say git add dot, which adds all the new stuff we just added in, which is a copy of ICE2, right? And git commit -m, we're going to say added project files for ICE3, right? So this is just a copy of what we did in ICE2. And remember what we just did, git add, git commit. So those are the two things we've just done. And the last one is git push. And this pushes our new stuff all the way out to GitHub. And when we look at our GitHub repository here, let's take a look at that. GitHub, and here's Canador. You can see now that we have our in-class exercises, and we can see that ICE3 is here. This is how your ICE GitHub link or your GitHub repository should look. ICE1, ICE2, and ICE3. Some of you, for whatever reason, have not done this, and they keep clobbering the previous version, or you keep working with ICE2 or ICE1. That means your GitHub link is incorrectly formed from what I'm looking for. You'll lose marks for this. Okay, so you must have these 3 little folders within the main folder, which is your ICEs folder. Okay, and that's how we should look up online. Last week we also built for WebGL, which is something that you guys should have done before, and we've talked about this. But let's continue with what we're doing this week. So now that I have my new project called ICE3, then I want to open it with Unity Hub. So I'm going to go back to point to the right spot. So I'm going to go to Canador, ICEs, ICE3. I'm inside this folder, and then I press open. Okay. And let's wait till Unity regenerates everything. So Unity is going to take its time. It's going to rebuild the library folder for us. And the first thing we always want to do whenever we launch Unity is check to see that everything's working as it did last time. We don't want to kind of assume that everything's working and then we try it and it's like, it doesn't work. So yeah. Any questions or around Unity, or any comments about maybe some of the ways I'm doing it compared to what you learned from your previous professors? Have they done it similar to me? Maybe not.
Not even close.
What do they do, Rin?
Not much, to be honest. We've done a couple tutorials, but that's about it. This is probably the most that we've actually done in Unity. Like, we've done tutorials where we drove our little car around and changed assets and added some particle effects to a really older version of Unity. It was 2017 that we were using, but we haven't done stuff like this. The coding stuff that you're teaching also, we have not learned. So,
okay. All right. So I'll continue assuming that you don't know.
Yeah,
better.
Good assumption.
Yeah, well, it's okay. That's why we're here. We're here to learn. We're here to. I'm trying to patch up my job, guys. Beyond teaching you data structures and algorithms, is trying to patch up your knowledge. So one day we can all work together. That's what I want to do, all of you, right? And the way we can do this is to get you guys up to speed. Unity. I know some people are like, well, anyone can do Unity, right? That's their attitude. But Unity is a tool, and remember that Unity has its place. It's a tool that is different than Unreal. It's better for mobile, I believe. It's better for web, for sure, right? And it's better for 2D than Unreal. Unreal is better than Unity for lighting. For a lot of things in the 3D space, for sure, 100%. There's a lot of really great stuff, but Unity is also really great for 3D. There's been a lot of games that are made with 3D, and it's lighter weight in many ways to get started for beginners. Unreal is okay for VR. Unity is way better for VR. If you're going to do VR, I find Unity is far easier to use. So there's some real advantages to using these two engines, and there's nothing wrong with knowing both of them, right? When we talk to our friends at Ubisoft again and other places, they always say you should know both, right? You should know both engines. You should have a good idea of how both of them work, because their Snowdrop engine, which has quite a bit of tech debt, right, also uses something closer to Unreal. It's not Unreal. It's something closer to that, but also it has elements that we see in Unity. So again, back in Unity, whenever we launch the scene again, after we've deleted the library folder, notice that it goes to an untitled scene. Okay, this is something you should know, right? That every single time it comes in, if I delete the library folder, it does not start off with my normal scene. I got to go into my scenes folder, and I got to double click on main to bring up my scene from last day. Okay. Then I should run it as normal. So let's run it. So I'm going to say, let's play. And when we play the scene, what I want to do is, does it work as it should? And so now you can't really click on anything to do anything. There is no interaction. We're going to do the interactions today and talk about how this can work a little bit easier. We're going to focus a lot on interacting with the cards, highlighting the cards, making a deck of cards. How do we do that? And those basic things to get you going with your assignment. Okay, that's what I want you to do to help you. All right, so that's what it does right now. It's good. And what we know is if I go to the cards parent, so this square brackets cards, and again, you might be unfamiliar with this way of organizing your hierarchy. It's totally fine. Don't worry about it. Don't fret about it, or whatever. This is just the way I like to organize things. So example here, I have my ace of clubs, and if I want to turn it over, remember we did this, I can just click on the is face up, and all of a sudden, boom, it just changes to is face down. So I can keep doing that anytime I want, okay? I can toggle that over and over again just by clicking this little button, okay? And you can do that for any one of the cards. You should be able to do that for any one of these things, okay? So this is going to help us with this information, okay? That's good. So that is our project. One thing to also note is, just going to make this maximized here. We want to save the project, and we want to save the project. Save itself by itself only saves the scene. And whenever we make change to the scene, if you're worried about your Unity crashing, which can happen, especially when we're doing things like procedural generation, if I want to procedurally generate a scene or something like that. In other words, I want to make something like, I don't know, a sandbox crafting survival game with all the voxels that are going to be procedurally generated. Sometimes I can crash my code, right? So save the scene, please. And other times I want to just save the project. The project saving creates an SLN file. And if I look back down at the actual operating system and look inside of ICE3, you can see that I have two SLN files now. One from last week that was generated by me doing save project, and the other one from this week. I want to get rid of the one from last week in the operating system. Just delete it, please. All right, so there's only one ICE3. It's not going to make a big deal or a big difference, but this is it. Okay, so this is what it looks like in the operating system. Nice. Okay, excellent. I want to add a couple of things. One, I want to be able to select my cards with my mouse. That's what I want to do at this point. Okay, and there's some stuff that can help us, and I kind of posted it up here as a link, and I want to talk about this. So here is on mouse enter is actually an event that Unity provides for you, which is, in my opinion, awesome. Okay, on mouse enter. And there's also on mouse exit. There's a couple of events that we can use here as well. So the on mouse exit and on mouse enter, right, kind of event. And so this is pretty cool. And here's an example code of how this works. So here's on mouse enter. We can change the color of the material of the object that we're entering to red if we want to. On mouse exit, we can change it back to something else, right? Which is kind of something that we can use. Let's try on mouse enter and on mouse exit in our card code. That's the first thing we're going to change. So let's do it. And then what I wanted to report is which card I'm hovering over, which card I'm touching with my mouse. And because now we want to start interaction. That's what we want to try and do. Okay. Where do we put this in? So we know that every card in our that we have right now that we've defined inside of our models, every card that we have has the card script attached to it. That's what we have. Remember, the way we did it last week was we had this card script. Let's do a little bit of a review. So double click. It's going to bring up Visual Studio 2022. On that, while this is pulling up, how is ReSharper coming? Did you guys get it going? Did they approve it?
I'm still waiting for approval.
Everyone else? Anyone else get approval for ReSharper?
Mine got approved pretty quickly. I like it was 2 days and it got approved.
How did you get approved by it? The other people didn't. What did you put in Canador's email address? What did you do?
I sent a copy of my enrollment letter. That's all I did.
All right, that's smart. Okay, so there's something that all of you can do. So please get it done. I think it's a great tool, guys. It's going to help you code easier. So I think it's better. How about everyone else? Did anyone else get approved or not approved? Hopefully you guys have done it. Some, maybe more than one of you. Can't just be one person.
Approved.
You got approved? Okay, that's good. All right, so what we did last time was this. We said we had our card, kind of class, a card class, which is of type mono behavior, and our start method. We mentioned our start method. We said that if you make, just review, if you make a script in Unity, do not leave, or not yet approve. I'm sorry, Matthew. Don't leave your start and your update methods empty. Get rid of them. That's what we said. That's a standard practice for optimization in Unity. Do that. All right. But here we are using start. Start is actually calling the initialize method, which the initialize method, what it does is it starts defining what the card is about. I use something called name.split, and name.split takes the name of the card itself. So this is how we did from last time. We get the name. So for example, here, up here is the name. That's the name of the game object. And then what it does, it takes the name of the game object and it uses the split method, which creates two substrings, right? And it splits it on something called a delimiter. The delimiter is a special character. It could be a comma, or in this case, an underscore, because that's what we have here, an underscore in the name of the card. Oops, I don't want to do that. Let's make sure that all of them are still named properly. Ooh, right? And it's, now this is our weakness too, in many ways. We're depending on the name of the card in order for us to define what the card is. We don't care necessarily about the symbol that's in front, but really actually the naming convention is what we're looking for. All right, so that's what's happening. And once we split it up, we have something called suit rankings. And the suit rankings is going to be split up into, so the suit rank strings. There's two strings. The first string, which is club, and the second string, which is A, right? I'm just looking at this one example. And then we say, okay, cool. So we have suit rank strings 0 and suit rank strings 1. And then I say, okay, well, we have a new words or number words array, right? A new array of type, string, which is what this is. If I hover over, we also talked about var last week from a coding practice perspective, and how the var keyword is like auto in C++ and auto in var when we think about this. So I got approved and went to get it, and invitation expired. Do it again, Justin. I'm so sorry. You have to do that. That's terrible. I'm so sorry about that. So the var keyword basically uses something called type inference. And type inference basically says, okay, whatever I'm assigning to this thing is what this thing is going to be, the type it's going to be. But once it's been assigned a type, it stays that type forever. So it's different than JavaScript, let's say, which is loosely typed, which means I can change the type anytime I want, the type being string or integer or whatever. That's kind of weird. And that's why people hate JavaScript in many ways. I don't. But people hate JavaScript because it's loosely typed. You can change the type on the fly. When you assign it, it just takes whatever you assign it. Not so in this case. Once you assign it the first time, it stays that way, and the type is immutable for the entire time. So here I've made a type. I'm using something called initialization syntax, which we talked about last week with arrays. Arrays have initialization syntax, which allow me to mention the array, the strings. I can initialize, I can add all the elements of the array in here. And you can see that number words have a fixed number based on the things that I put in here, okay? And then what I did was I took my suit, right, which is a string, right, for the actual card itself. I took the suit, and then I took suit rank strings 0 as an example, which is the first string inside the name, okay? And really it's like name string is what this suit rank strings, I called it suit rank strings, but it should be really name string, right? And then what I did was I said, okay, the suit, name string 0 is the suit, and name string 1 is the, is the rank, is what I've done, okay? And we also derived the value for this too. So I kind of defined in a switch case what A means. So if I have A, like here, that means ace, right? And the value of aces for us is 1. Okay, that's what it means. And J is Jack, and the value for Jack is 11, Queen is 12, King is 13. That's what we did last week. And then what I did was at the end, if it's not one of these, Ace, Jack, Queen, or King, well, then it must be a number like this, a string, kind of word, if you will, a number word. And then what we just say is, well, the suit is suit rank string 0. So that would be the name string 0, which is this, again, the club. That's the suit. And I use a try parse. And by the way, this is why you needed to do the using system. You need to add that into your using statement. Some people didn't because you don't have resharper. Resharper added it in for me automatically. I didn't have to do that. Just as I typed, it just added it in, right? And some of you had got some errors saying it doesn't like, in32. It doesn't know what that is. Well, because you didn't add in the using statement that was automatically added in for me. Try parse requires two pieces. It requires a string S and an integer with an out reference. And what the out reference is basically saying that it's almost like an ampersand. That's what it is in C++, where you have the ampersand means like a reference. I want to get a reference to the actual object itself. That's what out is in C#, right? So it's almost like saying I want to get the reference to the value, and I want to store when I parse the suit rank and convert it from string to int, I want to save it here inside the value, ampersand, right? Which is the and symbol, this one, ampersand. So ampersand is like, if you actually look it up, right? It's spelled like this. Ampersand is this symbol, right? And this symbol here in C++ is that's what it means. Okay. Thank you for asking. All right, so yeah, so this is pretty cool. So that is what it would be in C++, but here in C# we don't need that. It's just the out symbol. And oops, and so it converts this to an int, and each of these things is converted to an integer. So we have a value for each object, each card has that value. Rank name is we look number of words, and whatever the value of the number of words, that's going to be the rank name, and the rank name is just a string. And we have is face up, which is a Boolean, which by default we set to true. Okay, we set that to true. Start facing is face up. So we kind of set up some defaults, and then we say something like flip. When we call the flip method, it actually does that transformation in 3D space where we flip the card on its back or the other way around. And the flip method, it uses a ternary operator inside of the quaternion Euler rotation. And again, this is pronounced Euler for those people who don't know or who forgot, right? So the quaternion Euler rotation, a quaternion is a rotation in three-dimensional space that doesn't have any kind of gimbal lock. That's what that is. And basically what it is here it's going to rotate is face up. If it is face up, then we're going to make it so that there's no rotation. However, if it's not face up, we're going to rotate it by 180 degrees, and we're going to make it flip on its back. All right, kind of thing. And that's the ternary operator. That's how we check to see what the position is. And whenever we flip, we move the thing up. The card physically goes up, and because each card has a rigid body attached to it, when we move it up, it then comes back down. That's what happens. Okay. And in the update function, what we're saying is if my start facing is different than is face up, so if I check off the checkbox, then what ends up happening is it flips. That's what it does. And we also have a public override toString method that overrides the built-in toString method that comes with all classes. All classes have a toString method that converts the class into a string, and we're overriding it so that way we can get it to print out the ace of spades as an example, if I want to. Okay, so that is our class. I just wanted to do a bit of a review because it's been a week and some of you may have forgotten, and I wanted to go over everything again just one more time. Okay, so this is our card class, but now what I want to do is I want to say, okay, so if my mouse goes over the card, well then I want to somehow highlight it. Okay, but let's do this. When my mouse goes over the card, I want to output the toString to the console. That's what I want to do. All right, so how do we do that? At the bottom of the class, here's the new code, right? I want to do a void and then on mouse enter, right? And when we do an on mouse enter, remember that it kind of should look like this, on mouse enter. Okay, that doesn't take any parameters. On mouse enter, and then it's a method. And we also want to do the void on mouse exit, and that is also going to be something in there as well. So on mouse enter, on mouse exit. Okay, and on mouse enter, I want to print the this to the console. Remember what this means. This is a representation of the card itself, right? Which means it's going to print out this message right here, this toString method, right? And we're not going to do anything on mouse exit yet, but we're going to put this in there in place to see what this looks like. Okay, save. In fact, why don't we just do that? We'll say another print statement here, which is going to say something like mouse over. And then if you really want to do that, we instead of we can add on, right? We can add on this dot toString. Okay, we can do that as well. Okay, so we can kind of do that. Notice that it says we don't have to say toString. It's all grayed out because it's implied that we're going to do this. And I want to get mouse over this. And then I'm just going to say print the exact same thing. We're going to say mouse exit or mouse out is kind of the way we're going to do it. So instead of mouse over, we're going to say mouse out, just so that we know That's what it means. We're leaving this card, mouse exiting, mouse, maybe we'll say mouse entering. How about that? And mouse exiting. Right, so we know which one we're leaving and which one we're going to. Let's test these functions out to see if they work. Okay, so that's the only thing we've changed. There's just two little lines of code, right? And let's get back to Unity and check this out. Right, so how would I do this? If I run the code now, then you're going to get into the scene. And what I'm hoping is that when we hover our mouse over the ace of spades or the ace of hearts or hover in and out, you can see that it keeps on accumulating those kind of things. If I can do this, and if I can mouse on, out, or over, hey man, that's half of what we want to do. Once we've done this, I can do lots of really cool stuff. I want to highlight this. I want to highlight that card when I'm mousing over or mousing out. I want to be able to do that. How does this work? So we know that the effect works, that actually this code, it works here because we can do that. We don't care about this anymore. I want to have a highlighted effect kind of come into being with this. Now, we don't want to do specialized shaders on our own, so I recommend downloading a piece of code. And let's do this. So I'm going to go to Window, and let's try this first. We'll try this one, and if this doesn't work, we'll try basic. We'll just try some other basic things to do it. So I want to go to Window, and I want to go to Package Manager, and this is where I want to download an asset into my into the game again. And so the asset that I want you to get is this asset here, which is the free selection outline from the asset store. I'm just gonna give you this link. And I'm also gonna put this link for those people who are not here in our in-class exercise for this week. So I'm gonna make a brand new link here, and then I'll put that in there. And then I'll say that that is the asset, which is the free selection outline asset from the Unity asset store. Okay, that's what we're doing. Okay, so that way we know what it is. And that's going to be in your in-class exercise that would be required for you to try and download. Hopefully this would work for us. Oops, I went to the wrong thing. Here it is. Okay, so there's free selection outline asset from Unity. And also, I also want to, from the in-class exercise, the other thing that I want to add in is this Unity scripting, so you understand how on-mouse enter and on-mouse exit work. Kind of works like this. Just to remind you guys, it's here, and I think it's kind of a good thing to kind of we're gonna accumulate, you know, more and more of these little tidbits as we go through the course. So on-mouse enter event documentation. Right? So that way you have it here, and it's listed for you guys in on your course shell at the same time that we're doing everything here. Okay, so that's where it is. Awesome. And what I want to do is now that the way you download it, you add to my assets. Again, you have to have a Unity account to do this. You add to my assets. And once you've added to your assets, then what you want to do, you have to be logged in to the Unity Asset Store. Then you can download the assets. And the way that's done is if you go to Package Manager and you look at my assets, you can see that I have quite a few. On the top right, you can kind of just type in select. Here's select. And you can see that free selection is there. That's the one you want, free selection outline, right? And I want to click import. That's what I want. And the import, I want you to put into, it says all. So all of this is what you're going to import. And I'm going to click import. Okay. It's going to take a second. And when you import this object, it's going to give you a couple of things. And you're going to see that there is this free selection outline thing that kind of suddenly appeared inside of our Unity, and it's pretty ugly. I don't like it. Whenever I import stuff like this, I want to grab the minimal amount of stuff, just like I did for the cards for you guys, because whenever you import assets into your Unity, there's a lot of extra stuff you don't need. Even the cards came with 2D version, and a bunch of this table came with different versions, different sizes, and all that stuff. So I kind of optimized it for you guys before. And I want to do this kind of optimization together with you now, right? So what do we need for this thing? Well, there's a README file. Let's take a look. So the README file says how to use. Add the script called selection outline controller.cs to the camera you want to affect. Camera has to be there. Then play the demo scene and click and hold on any object in the scene and it will show the outline. Okay. Parameters, selection mode. 1, only outline the single object you select. 2, outline its children too. Cool. Outline type, the whole object, but colorize the occluded parts. 3, only outline the visible parts. So there's some really great stuff. Alpha mode. 1, read the alpha data of main texture, that's the main texture, and cause holes. 2, only outline the intact geometry, okay? And then outline color, whatever the outline color is. Occluded color, what happens when you're occluded means if you take an object that's inside the table, and they kind of showed you this in the Unity here. This is the occluded version where you have part of the object in the table and you can kind of highlight that part just to show you this. A very nice little thing. And this is just only highlight the one that you can see. All right. So that's kind of how we want to do it. And so it tells you how to use it. An object must be given a collider, and the collider must be put in the same place where its render is, where its ender is. So it says so that it can be selected by ray casting. That's how it does it. Okay, good. And it says selection codes are in the update function of the script. Write your own codes there if you want. Cool, right? And warning, remember to assign 2 related shaders, post-processing outline and target into the project settings graphics always included shaders. Otherwise, this function would not work properly after you built your game. Okay, so this is an actual extra thing that we need to do, right? So that's something we need to add. Advice. It'd be better that main texture property of the selected object was named as main text and the alpha data are stored in the alpha thing. So this is some stuff that we want to look at, and there's some additional words here, that we have here that would have been written in something else. So it says a couple things. It says not compatible with URP, Universal Render Pipeline, and the HDRP. So that's what it says. Okay, so this is some limitations to this little free script. Okay, so let's see if this works as we're using it for the first time. So I want to save my scene, file, save, and I want to, before we do anything else, I want to, kind of double click this outline demo scene first. Let's see what it looks like. So this is my outline demo scene. So it has a couple of items that we have here for the outline demo. And I'm just going to move around so we can see the scene. There's the camera, right? And so there's a few items, and let's run the scene. This is the demo scene that came with this thing, okay? And well, it says click and hold any object, right? That's how it works, and it can outline this object. This is what it can do. You can see that there are different examples here of the objects that it can outline. So this is not a bad outliner, right? We're not going to do it on click and hold. We're going to do it on hover, right? So that's how we're going to do it. It says click and hold any object, and it will show the outline. Change the outline style in the script in the camera. Read the README file if you have any questions. So let's take a look at the camera. So the camera, whenever we incorporate a script, it has the selection outline controller. That's what it gives you. It says selection mode. You want end children. This is the one they wanted. Outline type, colorize occluded, right? And then alpha mode, keep holes. You want that. Outline color is this orange color. Outline width. This is a lot of cool stuff. And outline hardness, which means how much, probably some kind of like anti-aliasing. Okay, so that's kind of where this is it. So that's what we need for our thing. All right, what about the objects? So if I look at the objects in the scene, I have this object, right? This object here, which is the test objects. The sphere has a mesh collider. Okay, pretty cool. And the cube has a box collider. So mesh collider, box collider, doesn't matter, right? And cylinder, capsule collider, right, which is pretty cool. And cube, box collider, pretty cool. So that is this part. What about the scripts? So let's take a look at the scripts that it came with. It came with the selection outline controller. Let's take a look at the script. Now, this is written by somebody else, not us. All right, so to get this going. So here's the selection mode. There's a bunch of enumerations that they have here. And I'm just going to go down here. And they have other scripts here where they talk about if it's in WebGL or not. Here it is, whether it's occluded or colorized. And now it works on clicking. right? It works on clicking, and we don't want it to work on clicking. We want to adapt this script so it works on hover. That's what we want it to do. So it says, here's the update, input.get mouse button 0, and then we cast array. That's what it does. And then what it's going to do is when we cast array, right, this screen point array, that's what it does. Once we cast array, then what it does is this is where it changes the, it activates, the colorizer, right? Because that's what it's going to do. So it says in the update method is where all the fun happens. This is where it's all happening right here. Okay, so that's cool. So target render, is an object, right? So it's a renderer, right? And it says the selection outline controller itself is what we're trying to get. All right, so that's the target renderer. And it's going to be saying that whatever that renderer is, the thing that we're hitting, what we want to do is we want to make it so that it switches out, the renderer with whatever else. So this script here that we see, if physics raycast, this is going to happen instead of on mouse button. We want to move this script here as an example to some degree, somehow. We want to move it on mouse over if we're going to make it work. Okay. So that's one thing we know. We know there's some work to be done to make this work somehow. Okay. Okay. Excellent. So we know this is, we're going to keep this up. And that's what this script does. It comes with a couple of shaders, right? So these are shaders, post-process outline, and the target. Okay, so that's what it does. And these shaders are custom shaders written in Unity, right? So they're HLSL equivalent, not GLSL. Okay, if you've done that kind of stuff. We have scripts. We have a demo material that they have here as well. One of them is a cutoff type material. Another one is a translucent material. And there's also an alpha map. I'm not sure that we need all these for what we want, but we definitely want the scripts. The selection outline controller is something that we want. And I'm going to take that selection outline controller, I'm going to take it and drop it into our scripts. Again, we're just modifying what we have. The debug function, I'm not sure that we need it right now. I mean, it's a very small script that basically allows you to, all it does for what it looks like is on input key down escape key, it quits the application. Okay, I can take that. I mean, again, I can see it here, right? So it's not bad. So I've got rid of the scripts. Shaders, I can take the shaders and put it inside of my my own structure. And then it has a outline demo and a README file and some demo material that I'm going to keep for now, right? Because I want to go into my own script and see how it works. Okay, so let's see how this works. I'm going to go back to my scenes. So I've just moved some stuff around. That's all I've done. And I'm going to go back into my main scene and let's see what I can do here for me. So just moving the camera, the viewport camera back into place so we can see everything. There we go. And what I want to do is attach that script that we had to the main camera. So our main camera is where the main script goes here. All right, so I'm going to take that script, which is the selection outline controller, and put it up there. Bam. Let's change some values. So I don't like the outline color. I want the outline color for us to be green. So let's do that. So we'll make a green color for the outline. And I want the outline width. Let's keep it the same for now. I just want to make sure that it works. It says, and children, colorize occluded or whole, right? Or only visible. It's up to us. And alpha mode is keep holes. I'm going to select everything as is. Let's see what happens. So I'm going to click play. And then what I want to do is if I click onto it, you can see that now I can click on individual objects and they're pretty fat. All right, you should be able to do this too. Yes? Can you do this? Again, we know this is working because our selection script does the way things does it the way it's supposed to do it, right? And let's make it so that we reduce the number to, I think it's too fat in my case. I want to make it 0.1. So what happens if I make it 0.1 here? Down here, I'm just going to collapse this so you can see it in the camera. It's 0.1. So what happens now? I think it's a little better. I think it's a little bit easier. We can see the outline come up. Okay, that's how it works. And we need to use our left mouse button to have that happen. I want it so when I hover over, it does that. Okay. That means a change a little bit for us. Hover over. Okay. And it's almost like I want to activate it for that particular card. Whenever I'm hovering, I'm targeting that card. All right. So that's one thing to do. So 0.1 seems to be a good value. Okay. And let's see. Yep.
I don't know what happened, but after I put the script in, my camera's like gone all screwed up, like it's not showing anything now.
On the main camera here.
Like when I like try and start up like the game scene,
Oh.
like when I press play, it shows nothing for me. I don't know.
Okay. Well, let's do a couple things here. Let's what I want you to do, and I'm going to stop sharing. And what we're going to do to fix you is I'm going to allow you to share your screen. So please
All right,
share your screen.
yeah, just 1 second. I'll join on my laptop because I've joined on the Zoom call on my desktop, so I could look on the other screen while I do stuff on my main one.
No problem.
On the laptop screen. So
So this way I can fix you, right?
yeah.
And what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you for control. I'm going to go into your computer and I'll look around and see what the problem is.
Yeah,
Okay.
I need to find the code again. I don't know why it's not there.
As soon as you share your screen, then I'll be able to help you.
Yeah, I just having trouble finding where the code is now. Sorry about this.
One thing to try is to uncheck this. If you uncheck the script, let me go back to sharing for a second until you're ready. One thing to try is if I want to uncheck this, right, then it won't work, right? It'll be off. So if I run the code again in my camera, then you can see that it's not going to work anymore. I click onto it, right? So that's a way to deselect this whole thing. And I'm just going to wait for you. How about everyone else? Is it working for some other people? I want to make sure that it is.
I'm good.
Okay, good.
In the ass now.
Okay. Here we go.
All right, there we go.
Okay, so you can, I'm going to stop sharing now, and then you can share your screen. I'll see if I can fix you. Awesome. Okay, so we actually can see what the camera preview looks like. I'm just going to request control. So
I took out the controller now for now there. So if I press play there, it'll. There we go.
So let's take a look. I'm just going to move some of this away. So skybox. Okay, so you removed everything. So if we play now, does it play normally? Let's see. Isn't that weird?
Yeah, I don't.
What is it looking at? What is the target? So use graphic settings. And that's the camera. Isn't that weird? It's actually not, even when you're not attached, it did something. Let me just compare my camera to your camera. 1 sec, just 1 sec. And then we'll fix you we'll fix you up. No problem.
All right.
All right. Target display, skybox, everything, perspective, vertical, near plane and far plane, depth is 0.1, use graphic settings, and target texture, occlusion, culling. And yeah, what happened to your camera? Reset your scene too? That is weird. It's almost like your camera has become different. Let's do a couple things here. So one way to fix this is let's add another camera. So I'm going to make a brand new camera. Let me show you something here to fix you always, guys. So there's another camera. It's called camera. But notice Well, that is weird. It actually didn't add in your target. Wow, it really messed up things. Because, okay, so what you're supposed to have, I love these little side effects. It's amazing whenever you download some code. Breaks people's stuff. What it's supposed to have is supposed to have a target display, and it has all this stuff, but at the bottom, there's no target display. So it's not displaying anywhere, which is weird. So no target display. I wonder if that messed up your settings. Sorry, I'm just looking at your settings, but bear with me,
Yeah.
please.
There's no issue there.
Project settings and graphics, rendering pipeline. There's a sorting mode. Package manager. Ain't that weird? Okay, let's try this, please. What I want you to do is just you haven't saved your scene, have you? It
I
looks
don't,
like you
yeah.
haven't, right?
okay.
Okay, so let's restart your Unity. So I would say let's get out of this. I'll give you back control.
All right.
So, and then what I want you to do is just restart your Unity, please.
Yeah, all
So
right.
click out of this. Don't save anything. No, yes, don't save. That's right. And then restart Unity and then see if it resets, because that's a weird glitch. And I mean that only because your target display, and let me show you what I'm talking about here, right? So you can see it and see the difference between mine and yours. What it was missing is this part. Like you're actually missing a component. Take a look. Like so this part right here where it says target display, it in half. It was gone. Right? And without a target display, then it won't work, right? So that is weird. I don't know where that went. I mean, we can look it up. That's a glitch and a half.
Yeah,
Right,
I
so-
reopened it now and it's still not there. But I'm gonna like try running it, see if the camera is
No.
fixed now.
Is it?
Yeah, but the outline I don't think has been brought in.
It's okay. It's
Wait, no,
okay.
the outline's there.
It works.
I'm gonna try applying the outline. No.
Well, it should be there. Like the script wouldn't go away. You just didn't save the scene. So everything you imported should be still there, right? But what I mean is, let's take a look at that. So target display is missing.
All right, it's just working now.
Like I said, sometimes
Yeah.
that's what it does.
All right.
Game tab, canvas with target display drop down menu. It's missing, right? And it says, I think it depended on the platform. Maybe Android mode doesn't show it. Weird. That's another thing we could have tried to do, switch modes. But anyways, yeah, I think it's a glitch. Don't worry about it. That can happen. And I
Yeah.
wouldn't. How about my other friend here, Matthew? Did it work for you? Are you back to normal? Like, are you okay with what you've done when you switch back to the main scene? All right. Well, let's hopefully you are. So now that we know that is the case, so this is the selection controller. Again, I'm going here to show you this. The one thing that changes everything for us, right, is so render image. It changes the outline width and all this kind of stuff. This is the actual method that does it, right? So that's what it does. The render target is the thing that's being targeted, the thing that I'm changing. Wait your scene. Wow, okay. Just reload. It should work. I mean, like in other words, if you have to download or copy paste from the other thing, if it's completely destroyed your project somehow, you may have to just copy paste from the previous project, like last week. All right. But that's why we always make a copy, you see? Another reason why to make a copy and not you can always go back. So set target is whatever the target is. And if I go down here, it says if my target render is equal to the last target is selected. And what it's doing is it's using a raycast, right, to decide which one that I'm looking at. So input mouse position, it's going to do a ray, it's going to cast a ray from my input mouse position to this. So this is kind of what's happening. And then target renderer, which is something that is inside of the code itself. So if you look at this code, and if it was me, I'd probably rewrite this code a little bit because it's got a couple of things here, like the renderer, which is private, and it says target renderer, and last target and all this kind of stuff. For our code, because now we've inherited some of this code to make it work the way it does, I'm not going to rewrite this code. I just want to make an outline. Like, that's all I want, right? So let's make some of these, private methods. Let's make some of them public. For example, our target renderer, let's put that as public, please. So change this to public. This is in the selection outline controller that we just got. Okay, so make that public. And for the class itself, right, because now you can see these are all public methods, and it's got a bunch of enums, and it says the required component is type of camera, right? What I want to do is I want to go at the top here and just type in system.serializable. Please type this in, system.serializable, at the top of the required component part of the selection outline controller script. That's what we want to do. And so that we can use this thing somewhere else. So system.serializable basically makes it so that we can use the script in other places, right? Or access the script in other places. So just because we made our target renderer public, and the reason why I wanted to do that is because we're down in here in the update method, which is where we want to hijack a little bit. It says target renderer is equal to hit.transform.getComponent, and it's going to hold this in place. Now we may not need to do this, but I want to see what this looks like. And then it says last target is equal to null and blah, blah, blah. And then selection mode, depending on the selection mode and all that kind of stuff. So that's what this does. And what I want to do is, it says if input.get mouse button up and selected, then it clears the target. So clear the target means we want to do this piece right here on exit. Okay. So that's what we're going to do. We're not going to touch this script. We're going to take parts of this script and move it to our script. That's what we're going to do. Okay. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to take this whole script, the stuff inside of the update function, please. So all this stuff inside the update function, take it. And I'm going to, just from this if statement down to here, I think is good enough. So from line 196 of the script down to line 236, I'm going to copy it, okay? And then I want to go into my card class, my card.cs, and I'm going to paste it inside of the mouse enter method, like here, all right? And you can see that all of a sudden, target renderer becomes red, and a bunch of stuff becomes red. All of these things, we are going to have to access, right, as an example, through our through the actual script itself. So each card itself can be highlighted, but not every card, not every object, just the ones that we want to highlight here. Okay, so camera screen point to ray, this means we need access to the main camera. Camera does not exist, and if we go back to the selection outline controller, and if you go to the top, you can see that cam is of type camera. So we can lift this piece. We can actually say that the camera is also public. Let's make it public here. Bear with me. And then what we can do is, let's see if we can access this camera, right? The camera itself from the name selection outline controller, right? So the way it would work is, if I go to my card, right? And what if I said, just type in the if statement here, just type in selection outline controller, right? And you can see that dot, and you can see that there are no cameras here, right? But what if we made a reference to the selection outline controller inside of our script? So way up here, And we'll say that underneath the this public area here, but before the private area, we're going to say that we're making a new header that we're going to call something like selection properties, right? And inside the selection property, we need a reference to the selection outline controller, the script that this other guy wrote. So selection outline controller, we're going to call this selection outline controller. Let's make it smaller, maybe like a selection controller. All right, selection controller. And instead of making it private, let's make it public so we can see it. Right, and what we want to do is we want to make a reference to it. One of the ways to make a reference to it, we want to make a reference to each card, because each card is going to have this. I want to do it on start. So as soon as start happens, I want to find the object in the scene that has the selection outline controller, which in this case is the camera. But for now, well, let's just do this. We'll say selection outline controller. Selection outline controller is equal to find object of type, and then selection outline controller. And what this does, find object of type, finds the object in the scene that it has selection outline controller in it. That's what it does. That's the one line you need in the start method. This is our start method of the card class. Okay. Save. And then what we want to do is we're going to take care of all these errors here one at a time. We're going to scroll all the way down to this part, and where it says cam, we want to say selection controller dot cam. Right? And we're going to say selection controller dot target renderer. And all of this stuff, last target and this stuff, we're going to have to make all of this public for now. Okay, so going back to my selection outline controller, let's just, for now, make all of this public. Okay, don't worry about it. We're going to change some of this back to private later. But I would just to make it simple for us to use, right? We're just going to make this all public. So public, public, public. And what public does is it gives us access to anything that's made public here from our reference, right? Which is pretty cool. So save. These are all public. This is in the selection outline controller, please. Save. I'll go over this again in a second. And then in the card.cs class, right? We can start doing the same thing. We'll just reference the prefix. We'll use a prefix for all of these red marks, which will be selection controller, right? So selection controller will come ahead of, with the dot, in front of all of these. So selection outline controller last target, selection outline controller target, selection outline controller, and we'll do all of these in here as much as possible. And until it's very wordy, but it's going to take away all of these ugly.
Okay, I might be missing another thing like on the top there, but none of it's like highlighted as red for me. So I'm not sure what to replace.
It's not working for you because it's not highlighted in red.
Like some of the things we're supposed to be putting this in front of is not highlighted in red for me. It's not highlighted in anything.
That's weird, because it should be, because those names aren't going to be seen. This is inside of the card class. You're doing this.
Yes.
This is inside of the mouse enter. They should all be red. All right, I'm going to give you this. I'm going to give you this code in a second. 1 second. I'm going to give you this code.
Okay.
Bear with me while I finish this off. So notice that the only thing we have left over is the methods. These methods are also highlighted in red because these methods were private. So going back to my selection outline controller, I'm going to go down to these methods, and where it says private, let's make them public for now. Okay. We may elect later on, I may elect to rewrite some of this stuff for you guys. So that way I'm going to put public in front of here too, render target and public set target. I'm just going to put it public in front of these things. And what public does is it just makes it available for us to use the update function, no, but outside of the class, so that I can say public clear target, set target, render target. I can do all that outside of my class. Okay, that's what I'm doing here. Okay. And that should work mostly. Let's go back to my card class.cs. So most of those are good now. We see that there's no errors anymore except for selection mode. And the reason why selection mode is there, it says it doesn't know what selection mode is because what they've done, the person who wrote this code, is they made these public enums inside of the class itself, but they didn't make it available outside of the class. So one way to do that is to take these public enums and to lift them out of here. So cut all those public enums and put them at the top of the class. Really, they should be their own script. I don't like writing it this way. And then what you do is you just system.serialize each of these. System.serializable and system.serializable and system.serializable. And if I do those like so, then if I go back to my card class, then these should disappear. But it says selection mode can be used to tweak the selected return item. It says, but my enum name is not valid at this point. Selection mode, right? So why not? Why is selection mode not valid? Because I'm saying that if selection mode is equal to this, well, save. If I go back to my selection outline controller, then maybe somewhere in here, selection mode, right, is also private or something like that, right? Well, no, it's not. It's here. Selection mode is this. And notice that they made a enum type. So public selection mode is equal to selection mode. This is what they've done here, right? And somehow they say that, well, it's not, it's not public. So what we need to do is we need to preface this again with our selection outline controller class. So it'll be like exactly what we did before. So selection controller dot, and then this, and that should quiet that up again. So now there's no errors. Now, if you can't follow along, don't worry. I'm going to give you the code in a second. I just wanted to show you the process that I used to incorporate. Let me use that word. Incorporate the code into our code. That's what we've kind of done. And I'm just jacking this code because I want it to work for us. Later on, I will clean it up for you, and you'll see that a lot of this is probably can be done differently. Okay. All right. So save, right? Save. We saved this thing. We saved everything. Everything is no red marks anywhere. The card class has this chunky code right here, but it uses if input.get mouse button. We don't need that. I'm just going to delete this part, the if statement. And the last curly brace I don't need, because that last curly brace is for that if statement, and we don't need that if statement in there. Actually, I really erased the wrong one. This one. I don't need this one because it will be done on mouse enter, not on mouse click. All right, that's what's going to happen. And what I want to say is this part, which is input.get mouse up. So if I let the mouse thing up, it's going to say if mouse button up and my selection controller is selected, if it's selected for this thing, then for this particular thing, then I want to deselect it. Okay, so what I want to do is the only way I want to use if mouse on mouse exit, which is here, is I'm going to say if selection controller selected, if that is true, then I want my selection controller to clear the target. That's what I want to do. So I'm going to erase this part here from my code and all these extra marks, like all this extra debugging that they're doing. Okay, I don't need that. So that's what my code will look like for now. So basically it's their code. All I did was put selection controller dot in front of the errors that I got, right? And then I put on mouse exit, I took that little piece of code at the bottom, and because that would be done on when in their code, if I unclick, and I'm not clicking, I'm just hovering. Let's see if this works. So if it doesn't work, we can do something else. So back to this, and let's see if I can run it. Does it run, first of all? And if it does, I'm going to give you the code. So if I hover over, okay, so I get a null reference error, which is good, but at least it did something. So it's trying to do something. So let's see what the null reference error is. It says that, command select render target of type mask is what it says, where mask, if you look at the mask here, it says that the render texture mask and outline is what it's looking at. So let's take a look at the render texture that it's looking at, right? And I'm going to go back to my camera where the camera is set, and I have extra information here in the code. So notice that mask that's here, right? Mask that's here doesn't have anything associated with it. It's just a render texture. And here's the outline that it's pointing to as well. So those are the two things that are there. The camera is there. It's selected or not. It's initialized or not. These are extra informations that we've made available to us when we're pressing play. Okay, that's what we're doing, right? So, and so if I press continue, right, this is going to happen again, because as soon as I hover over, right, unless I press play, right, if I click onto it, then it's going to try and do the same thing as we did before. So notice that again, if I hover over any of it, it's starting to work, okay? But when I hover over everything, it gives me this error, it kicks me out of our code. And let's take a look what happens in the game. So the game, nothing's happening. And in the scene, we have this null reference error where it says set targets. In the set target method, the problem that it's having is here because it doesn't know what the mask is. So how would it work if I was using this part in my update, right? How does it know? Well, it says we're going to do a ray. A ray is going to shoot from wherever my mouse position is. Wherever my mouse position is going to shoot a ray, and the ray cast hits screen to ray point. It's going to get a hit place, and if physics.raycastRay, if I have a hit, then the target renderer is going to change. You know, I think this is the code that's here for my input. That's how it works, right? So that's how the update method works. Let's do this. Maybe this update method is colliding. I don't want it to collide, right? So I'm just going to comment it out. And that's inside of the selection controller. I'm just commenting it out, right? Just to make sure that there's no issues. All right, going back to this, let's rerun it and see what happens now. Because now we can really, kind of be clear on what's happening. So run. And I hover over, again, there's a null referencer. I'm okay with that as long as it goes to the right place. So, okay, so now this is where it happens. So it says, so my command, so CMD, which is the command. And if you look up here, I'm just going to go up here to what they've done. This person, command is what they call a command buffer, right? So here's your command buffer. So my command buffer is what's happening down here. Is set render target to whatever the mask is, and the mask, just going to go back up here. When we are initializing, this is the initializing, right? Method on enable. This is when this is happening. This is the on enable method that they're using. On enable, on initialize is called, and the mask is this new render texture that they're creating, right? That's happening here. And so that's why this is not working, because initialize was never called. So initialize was never called. And it's like the outline shader.
Line 60 on nail.
Yes. Yeah.
Do you fix that?
I can. Did it work for you?
No.
Yeah. So they called it unnail, right? They called it a different name. They called it, that's their own word for what they're using, right? And unnail, right? And the reason why they called it unnail instead of on enable, if I'm not wrong, is on ale. They're initializing it. I'm gonna make sure that this is not, if I'm not completely off base here, but I'm thinking they call it from in here. Let's go back to my code. One more second. And if it doesn't work again, guys, there's other ways we can do it. Simpler, not as nice as this, but we'll make it work. So la 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 la, and so it does this. Remember, reading code, someone else's code, always tough. Especially when it's a mess like this guy's, the way he wrote it, right? Array clear, so he did it that way, and then whatever. So that's on enable. Let's then he called this there, and did he make his own? I'm just talking to myself. Did he make his own method? Enable keyboard, I think he did. Add command buffer. These are all command buffers for your shader, because he uses a command buffer to make everything work. I'm pretty sure. Line type, it's colorized. Yeah, because if this was called on enable, right? Then what
I
would
thought
happen?
it was a typo.
Yeah, I don't think it is, because if it was on enable, right, then what happens is when the camera is enabled for the first time, then initial, what he called initial would be called, which means that the outline shader would be loaded, the target shader, all that stuff would be ready to go, and then mask would also be something that would be loaded. Let's just leave it on enable, like we'll leave it so that it's enabled like this. We'll respell it like you said. I don't think it's the right thing to do. Let me undo that change 1 sec. And one thing to do is let's Control F this thing. If it's being called from anywhere, Control F. I don't think it's anywhere else in the code. I didn't see it anywhere else. I think it's just initial. How about this one? Is it being called anywhere? Huh. I think he did it on purpose, because he's calling initial there, right? Which is like his initializer, right? And he's also calling it on render image. Well, let's do it on enable. Let's change that to on enable. Just smart like you are. You kind of saw that. And let's see what happens if we do it that way. I don't think this is going to make a difference. And Justin says the error went away. I don't care about the error going away. I care about it all working. Well, see, it didn't work now because it says that the set target now has no mask. And let's go back to the camera to see what the mask looks like. Because mask gets loaded. There's an initial, right? So on enable, it gets there. Mask is here because on enable calls initial. Initial does all of this work. And then initial calls the mask, which is a render texture, which is the camera.pixel width and the camera.pixel height. And so it's rendering to the camera. That's the mask. That means if I click on the mask, is there anything that it's selecting? There's my render texture. So that's why it doesn't work, because see how that render texture doesn't actually produce anything? A render texture is a target for the camera, and that's not really showing us anything. Let's go back. That's why I undid this. Let's comment this
Hey,
out one more
Tom.
time. Yes.
Sorry to bother you.
No problem.
Once I took the comment back out of that, after you changed it from enable to enable, it works. To hover over top of it, it works, doesn't throw any errors.
I'm gonna do what you said. This part right here, you mean?
Maybe I didn't comment that out. I still have that in. And the stuff in on mouse enter is also in there.
Yeah, let's see if
And I
that works.
changed enable to enable and it's functioning.
I like your thinking, my friend. Let's try it out.
Because I missed a step and I was just fiddling around and I used to have an
I just
issue.
want to make it work like you.
Yeah, no, you don't have it yet.
What did you do?
Okay, so I missed commenting out the update like you did. And I thought you originally had commented out the on mouse part. So I had commented that out, but I put it back in. And the only thing that I changed was the line 60, which from enable to enable, and it works.
So you left all this in. You didn't change anything in the update function on the selection outline controller. You didn't do that,
No.
right? And in the
And nor did I
car,
move the enums outside or serialize them.
well, it doesn't really matter. That shouldn't make a difference. But
Yeah, because I missed that step. I knew I missed that part.
what did you do here? What's your code look like here compared to mine? Like, did you not do this? You mean you didn't put that here?
No, that's there. I can throw that up in the chat. I can
That's
throw
weird.
up
But
the-
you did this exact thing that I have. Let me just save this. Let me save everything. Hold on a second. Maybe mine's not saved. And let's try this out. Sometimes that happens. Still throwing the error.
So those are what I changed in cards. That's literally it. And then at line 60, I changed it to enable because it was a
Hold on.
nail.
I'm gonna take your code and use it in my code. How about that?
Sounds good.
I don't do anything different than you. I don't think it's that. I think it's something else I changed that you didn't. Because that would be in card. That would be here on mouse enter, right? This is where you put it?
Yes. Well, it's mouse enter and mouse exit. I gave you both of those.
Okay, that's weird. You said you didn't serialize the enumerations.
No.
So, and you changed it to unenable and it totally worked afterwards, what you said.
Yep.
But I mean, it doesn't really matter. Serialization doesn't do anything. So I could move them back, but
So I did change the serialization and change the on enable and did comment out, and it seems to be working. So something else is different too.
I missed
What the
whole
heck?
sections.
what the heck? Okay, so I'm jealous now. All right, that's what it is. I'm jealous. All right. Okay, can one of you?
I'm working to get you the script.
Yeah, if you put it on, you drop it on Discord for me. That may be the way it was.
You want it on
code works.
Discord or do you want it through in here?
It won't be big enough. If you drop it on Discord, I'll get it, and then I'll
Alrighty.
launch it.
Oh,
I drop in, if you can drop in both the card script and the selection outline controller, then I'll just copy paste and we'll be done. And then we'll do,
Sounds
we'll
good.
share script to everyone else. This is not supposed to be a block. This is supposed to be fun, right? So it worked actually for me before, but whatever. Okay. So this is your script. Yeah, you could actually drop in your entire script. Try that instead. So actually like drag and drop your script onto, instead of on Discord the way you have it. I'm just gonna remove your message there and let's put it on the, if you don't mind, let's put it under resources. So we know that that is something that we're using for resources. On Discord. And just drag and drop those two files from your operating system right in there, and then you're good to go. Thank you. Card CS, thank you. And that should help everybody, which is what I'm hoping. And let's just bring that up in Visual Studio Code. So Ren, you worked and so did yours. Ren, yours is working as well?
Yeah, perfectly fine right now. Doing the hover thing and everything.
Love it. All right, and let's just make sure that yours is mine and mine is yours. I think yours and ours are the exact same. Yep, so just copy this. So first of all, I think it might be there. I didn't really change anything on their side other than make it all public, but whatever. You know, I'm not, like, again, I'm not gonna be too jealous after this, just to make sure that it's okay. Okay.
The
Oh, I
only
see.
part that might be different between ours is I put an underscore at the beginning of start facing for the private pool, but I mean, oh no, it's just, but it might be the same on yours. I don't know.
And did you make it static? Did you make your selection outline controller static? Is that what you did?
Not intentionally. I don't even recall putting that there, but I could have. I don't think I put it as static. I think I just,
Hold on a sec.
did I even write that in
No, that was done.
automatically?
And did you do it too, Justin? Let's see what yours looks like. Expand. I'm sorry, just wanted to check out this stuff just to make sure that it's not, I'm not going crazy. Yeah, Justin didn't do it. So yours doesn't include that, Justin. And that's in the card class that I'm looking. Card class does not include this. Okay, so what if I remove this? And maybe that is an issue. It's kind of losing context. So without changing too much on mine, I just want to check this out. It's probably not the issue. No, something else that's happening. All right, and bear 1 second, guys, and I'll be, and Justin, yours works, you said, right? So
Yeah, it's working for me.
love it. Don't you love Unity? I love it. Wow, awesome. Okay, so that is exactly your code in there. And let's see if it's is it the card class? Right? Maybe it's not the card class. Run. So I haven't touched the selection class for a second. It's not the card class. So the card class is not the problem. It's the selection class that I have. And that's how I do my troubleshooting, guys. Notice what I did. I kind of did an isolation. I said, let's copy the card class. My card class and your card class, same, right? For the most part. So that's not the issue. So what it could be is what I did with the selection outline controller. And let's just use yours for that. Which I don't really care because it's not our code anyway. That's curious. So something that I did when I see, maybe when I serialized my enums or something, maybe that somehow caused a clash in the order. Maybe weird, but whatever. Okay, so now you've commented it out and you've got everything in there. Save that code. I've saved everything. Let's go back to this. It'll just reserialize and recompile. And let's just clear this little message just to make sure. And we should have everything good. Nope. My Shido worky, right? That's why I was confused. Why yours works and mine doesn't. So I have your exact code now. Why would yours work? You did serialize it down here. Why would yours work? System. I didn't change anything except for all this. So let's just comment. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna comment this out. We're gonna do some troubleshooting and then I'm gonna stop because clearly what I had done earlier didn't work for me, which is weird. Bear with me, guys. I love this stuff, but it's not enjoyable when we're watching it. Okay, so nothing works there. If I click onto it, because let's make it work again. So I'm gonna uncheck the stuff that we unchecked over here. I want to make it work the way it was originally, which is all of this. let's just put it back into play. And I want to make it work as it was before. So it should work as is. Oh. I know why it didn't work. You're gonna get mad at me now. All right. Because I had deselected, I was talking to you guys about unchecking the script, and the script was never attached, but it was trying to do a. That's why I was getting a null reference error. I know the error. I know why it works. Because what we were thinking is it should have worked exactly like I said, but the reason why it didn't was because I had unchecked the script from the camera, and that's why we're doing troubleshooting. And when I did that, the camera script became inactive. And when it becomes inactive, I'm trying to access an object that's inactive with my own raycast that I'm doing from each card. And that's what causes this issue. Yay, we found the error. So now we should be able to go and do what we said we're supposed to do with the card. Let's just uncomment everything the way it was. And let's make sure that I don't have any extra stuff in here that I don't need, like I don't need this debug breakcast. And I don't need this blit statement in the command. All right, and I do need this part uncommented here, and I should be good now. That took up a bit of chunk of time that I hope to do something else with you, but that's okay. At least we're gonna have this really cool effect. Right? Okay, so that is the way it works. So that's the reason why mine didn't work. Mine didn't work because it wasn't my code, it was the other stuff. I recommend though, just because let's just keep good code standards. For whenever we do something like enumerations for the selection outline controller, I mean, it's fine. I know that you have them down here, but realistically, we should put these at the top. Okay, so I recommend doing that instead of serializing them down here. So take these, please, and put them at the top of your code. That's where they belong. Okay, and then the other thing that I want to do with this piece of code here is not our code, right? So we're just going to keep it there just from an effect perspective for your assignment. That's what it's for. So it looks neat. All right, that's what it's for. We can actually get rid of all of this, and remember, we can always re-download. We can always re-download the project because we don't want, this project itself to come down the pipe and rewrite itself. So a couple of things that I recommend we do is let us, and I know this is controversial, but I want to change the name of your class here for selection outline controller. We're going to right click and we're going to refactor rename. And I want to rename this selection outline controller to selection outline. And I want to talk about this for a reason I'm doing this, because what if, and I'm just going to put it out there, what if when I make this class, let's make sure that the card class also gets updated. It did. And let's make sure that this selection outline, it should be lowercase selection outline, not uppercase. So this should be, again, I'm just going to comment, kind of refactor, rename it so that this is in lowercase. We should make our objects like this, lowercase. The main one is uppercase. We should put this together like this. And here's the reason why I'm going to do this. And of course, we're going to check this to see if it works. I'm going to put this up on GitHub too for you guys, just in case if you couldn't make yours work. The reason I want to do this is two reasons. One, now our own function is called selection outline. The original function way back over here in the scripts was called selection outline controller. That means if we, for whatever reason, Unity decides to re-download the package, it won't wipe out the changes we just made because our class is called something completely different than what it was before. Now, next part, let's get rid of some things that we don't need. We don't need this free selection outline controller. We don't need the demo material where it says translucent or cutoff. We don't need these things. We don't need the alpha map, but I'm going to keep them anyway. So I'm going to take these three things and I'm going to put them inside of a materials folder. So we have a couple of extra materials here. And now we don't need this free selection outline, thing with the README file. I don't need that anymore. Well, one thing that we saw in the README file that makes me, I'm not going to say worry, but it makes me think is this part where it says project settings, graphics always include shaders, right? So I want to get this one. Let's do this one first before I delete this thing. So I'm going to go to here and I'm going to go to edit project settings, right? And just like it says here, graphics. So this is graphics. And we want to see where it says always included shaders. Notice always included shaders is right back down here. And we want to include, it says here are the legacy shaders that are included. We want to actually add 2 more. So let's change this number from 6 to 8, which gives me a couple of additional spots here. And I want to go into our shaders and I'm just going to drag and drop this one in here. And I'm going to drag and drop this one in here. All right, so that we have those 2 shaders always inside of our graphics settings. So this way, if we build this thing, it's going to work. Otherwise, we might build it. It might work here in the editor, but it won't build, which is not what we want. All right, so that's where I did it. Again, I went to project settings in the menu. This is something you need to do. So project settings, and then I went to graphics, and then I scrolled down where it says always included shaders, and I put these 2 things in there. Okay. Great. And then I'm going to file save project, and I want to play this thing again to make sure everything works. Right. And now that everything works, I want to get rid of this free selection outline, delete. I don't need the README file or the extra scene. And now we're much better than we were before. Let's put this up on GitHub. So back to this. I'm going to clear. I'm going to say git add dot, git commit -m, and we'll say added selection, card selection. Git push. Are you with me? Did you guys get that working as well?
Yeah, I just need to remember the commands again for git.
Git add dot, git commit, git space commit space -m, and then in quotations what you did, right? And then git push, and it pushes up to GitHub for you.
It's not recognized. Oh,
Is it working?
not a
Second.
Git repository. It's not.
All right, did you add it into your folder for all your in-class exercises?
Yeah. Oh, wait a minute. I think I screwed up somewhere.
If you didn't, then you need to do that later. You can watch the video as well. We are recording.
Okay. No, not that. Git add dot, then what else again?
Git space commit space, and then -m, like -m, and then in quotations after the -m with a space. So it looks like this: git commit -m, and then added card selection. That's the command. And then down in here, it's git push.
All right, yeah, thank you.
All right, so now that we have everything up online, I was going to take a break at some point, but we've lost some time due to my folly, right? Now that we've got that happening, right? We have the ability for me to select it. What about on mouse down? So if I have a card, if I'm on there, if I'm on the card itself, I've highlighted it. And if I click onto it, I want it to toggle the flip. Okay, that's what I want to do next. Let's do that. Let's program that piece. So back to this. Back to this. I don't care about this class anymore, the selection outline class we made. We can ignore it at this point because we have all of this code. And one thing that we could do is, if you really on mouse enter, there's a lot of this stuff that's like in one big chunk that does a lot of that selection stuff. I'm not really comfortable with having everything like this out in the open. I feel naked when it's like this. And so what I like to do instead is put this inside of a method and call the method. And the reason for this is because I always believe that it's better to compartmentalize your methods because we can test them separately. And also we can collapse methods so we don't have to see them all like this inside of the scene, right? Or inside the thing. So if you have ReSharper, one way you can do it is you can right click and then you can go to refactor, extract method, right? And it might work even for Visual Studio Native. But ReSharper gives you the new method name that you want to hit. And we don't need anything. We're not going to include any parameters. We're just going to make a new method that's going to be called, we want to make the selection outline work. So we're going to say enable selection outline, right? Which is what I'm going to call the method. So it's descriptive. So we know what it means, what we're doing here, right? And then I'm not going to include any parameter types, and I'm going to click next. And then another way to do that obviously would be to manually make a method called enable selection outline and copy all that stuff in there. So on mouse enter, we're going to enable the selection outline. Great reason for this is I could now collapse this method and I don't need to see it anymore in Visual Studio because it's not our code. It's like somebody else's code that we're just going to enable, right? And I want to do the same thing with this stuff, which is disable selection outline, which is what this does. So I'm going to make another little method, even though it's a few lines of code. I don't care. This way I know what's happening. I know what this is doing, right? So kind of select this, and I'm going to go to refactor, extract method, or you can make your own method name. And I'm going to make a little method. I'm going to call this disable selection outline. And actually, one thing we could do is we theoretically could have an enable, disable selection outline. We could have these things actually in the other class that was made, selection outline. And we could write code for this. I'm not going to do that right now because it doesn't really belong here, that we can select and deselect outlines. It really belongs in the other class. And I'm just going to copy this part here too, these two private methods. So I'm going to cut them the way they're kind of compressed here and paste them down here. And so this way I can just kind of make a little comment here in my code that says external code. So I know it's not mine, right? But this is mine. And this is easier for me to work with at this point, okay? Just so that we can work on this code. So what I want to do is when my mouse is entering, I want to enable my selection outline. So enables, and I also want to flip my card every single time when I click the button. So the way this works would be if input dot get mouse, mouse button. So there's two ways. If it's held down, if I just do mouse button. If it's mouse button down, it's when it's clicked for the first thing. So mouse button down, and if it's 0, that is the left mouse button. So input.get mouse button down 0. If it's clicked, then what do I want to do? I want to flip. Okay. And when I flip, just to show you this, flip changes my is face up to is face is not is face up, whatever the opposite was, right? However, just to mention that this might double flip. And the reason why this might double flip is because on update, if we did it this way, we change, it does the flipping for us. So the smart thing to do is not call flip directly, but actually change not is face up is what we want to do. Not is face up. Okay, so that's what we want to do instead. So down in here, instead of calling flip, we're going to say whatever it was, it's not going to be anymore. So it's whatever, if whatever it is right now is face up is not is face up. This part right here, which is what I want to kind of do. I want to change it to whatever the opposite was. This is the toggle, right? And again, different ways of doing this thing, right? Where we're going to say that, well, if start facing is face up, this is what I'm unchecking or checking is face up. That's what I'm doing. Then when this is done, then this changes, right? So let's see what happens when I do that instead. If I say on mouse enter, and when my mouse is over and I click it at the same time, is this what I want to do? Is this going to work? Or is there another method that we can use, another event that we can to make this work? There is another one. So let's see how this works. So again, if I run this thing, and what I'm saying is I want to hover over, and if I click it, it's going to flip, but it doesn't flip. And it doesn't flip because I've already enacted this event. I'm already entered, and it's gone. It's instantly gone. So the other event they use is called on mouse. So let's go to the on mouse events. Let's go back to this on mouse event stuff, right? So we have on mouse over, right? There's the three events here: on mouse enter, on mouse over, on mouse exit. Those are the three events. So we want to use on mouse over. The void on mouse over, right? And what we want to say is do this. If you're on the thing, if you're hovering over the mouse and I press my left button down, I want to flip. All right, that's what I want to do. Let's see if this works. So save. Going back to here, and let's try it out. But it doesn't flip because it does part of it, but then it flips it back, right? Automatically. So let's go back and think about how to do this, right? So is face up kind of changes it, but makes part of it and then flips back. Okay, so what about if I flip? If I did this part, will it do the same thing? And I'm mentioning this because there's issues. There's issues, right? All right, so let's see what happens, right? So, sorry, let's go back to this for a second and let's run this thing. And there's issues because of our little update statement, right? So again, if I hover over and I click it, it does the exact same thing. Doesn't really flip over. Why? Because it's flipping and then flipping back because of our statement. So going back to this, if we disable the thing happening on update for us, so if I go back to our update method, and if I take away this part, right? So I'm just taking it away because I want to mention this to you. We had this part in for debugging with me clicking is the actual button itself, so I can flip it manually. But we don't want that to happen. We want the button, our mouse button, to do that, right? Let's try this again. So save. And let's see if this is going to work now. I want to flip, right? So, hey, that's what I want, okay? And I can see that I can flip all of them down or I can flip all of them up. Okay, so this is kind of giving the building blocks of what we're doing. It looks kind of neat. We can select the card. Now here's something else I want to do. When I select a card, I want the card to either be selected or not selected, okay? So let's do that. So first of all, let's put this up on GitHub that we're able to flip cards by clicking on them. Clear, git add dot, git commit -m, and we'll say flipped cards on click, git push. Okay, again, tiny little increments. That's what we're doing. This should have happened way faster. All right. Yeah.
I've run into an issue. I need to click on them twice before they actually flip.
Shouldn't. That shouldn't work. So let's go back to what I did. So back to the mouse code, not this one. Let's go back to this code. So I took away this, so none of that, and I'm just flipping. You shouldn't have to click on it twice. And the reason why is because I've got these three events: on mouse enter, on mouse exit, and this is where I'm doing it, on mouse over. Right, so only on mouse over, when I'm hovering over the card, that's what that means, then I can get access to this, right? And then I just call flip. I don't call it anywhere else. Is that what you have?
Yeah, that's what I've got.
That's weird. Because you've commented this out, I'm guessing?
Yes.
Clicking on it twice. Oh, that's weird. And you have input.get mouse button down?
Yep.
Huh. Does anyone else have that issue or is everyone else okay?
I didn't update my update, and I had the button to be able to flip it down further, and mine worked no problem. Like you took your update out, and if I take mine out, it doesn't work.
What?
Yeah.
If I uncomment my update, it doesn't work for me.
Hold on. Let's see what I did. Let's see what we did differently. Because remember, I copied your version into mine, right?
Yep.
And I want to make sure that my original one was different because that's the one maybe you guys had used, right? So, and be nice if we do a diff at this point. Is facing start initialize selection outline is that. Find object of type. Oh. I would recommend putting the selection outline before you do initialize, that's for sure. I would probably do that there. None of this has changed. Start facing would be public. Start facing needs to be private. We don't care about it being public. So these are just changes that I didn't have in my original code. And that would be down here. We can get, I don't think anything else is weird. Value is facing. Oh, this is different. I did it. So my toString method looks like this. Right? That's different. And my flipping transformation, what does my flip look like? So I just assumed that yours was exactly like mine. And it may have not been. Oh, this is it. So
That's
this is,
Justin's.
yeah, this is mine. That's why I'm taking mine back. Sorry. I'm just copy pasting from my GitHub repository. That's what I'm doing. That's why I'm saying sometimes I'm assuming mine is the way it is. And if I put mine back, then that should work now, right? Because let's just put that back. And let's see what my update. So let's make sure that that is the exact same as mine. Which is not a big deal, guys. I'm just going to make it go. I'm just getting my pieces back. My code. 2 seconds. Okay, that piece is different. This is the same. That's the same. That's the same. My update's the same. My toString is the same. Everything's the same. Okay, so I think everything is back to normal. And let's see if my code works now. 1 second. And then I can solve your problem. Because mine clearly wasn't the same as yours. All right, so that's what I had originally. And I called it flip because I had my update on, because the update was working. And instead of using my updates, if I did is facing up is equal to is not is facing up, whatever the difference is. Let's see if that works. So I just have to remove my update. 1 second. Oh, that's wow. Okay. Wow. Yes, but that's not what we want. It just changes it and it flips it, but it doesn't hammer. How does that work? Hold on a second. That is different. 1 sec. That's way whack. What? That I've never seen. All right. So it kind of disables the rigid body. Like what the hell? How does that work? Wait, what card is that? Who needs gravity exactly? Right. Okay, so that is, what card is that? That is hold on a second here. 7, that's this one. So the z-axis and the rigid body uses gravity. Well, that's weird. That's a weird side effect. So what if I just said flip? Just a second. And like I thought, I would probably disable it on the update method altogether, because that shouldn't be something we use here anyway. It was only for debugging purposes. Love these side effects. Amazing when someone uses it. Let's see if that's the truth. Oh. Yeah. All right. So let's see why that's happening. So let's trace it. So it was working for me with your code, Justin. Input that get mouse button down, we call the flip method on mouse over. And then the flip method, it says it's flipped, but then what happens is it doesn't get flipped. Why doesn't it? Transform. Oh, is face up. Okay, so this is where we have to change that. So we flip it, but then when we flip it, it doesn't actually do the flipping. So this is where we would say that when we're flipped, this is why you had that coded, it worked. In the flip function, we would have to say that exact thing, which is face up is equal to not is face up. That's why you had that in there. And that makes sense now. Okay, let's try that out. So that should basically put everything the world back in order. Let's try this again. Okay, so does it?
Yeah, that's the problem I've been running into.
You have to put
Yeah.
the flipping of the Boolean in front, and then it uses the new state for the new rotation.
Yeah, no, I mean, you mean this part.
No,
So
the
this-
that part up top.
Yeah,
of
yeah,
that.
yeah. Yeah, because what's happening is, that's why you have to do it twice, because what's happening is the way we wrote it, it uses the old state and then it doesn't do it. Okay, that's why that's why it does this. Okay, let's just come back. Hold on a second. Maybe we'll make it run with the update function too. Lovely. I love this this is great stuff, right? It's amazing. I really do, right? Because this is like the stuff that stuff of champions, so to say. All right, so that's good. All right, and what happens if we bring this back in, right? Let's see if that was the issue. I don't think it's going to be the issue, but let's see what happens, because that kind of controls the flipping thing. That should, yeah, exactly. That should cancel it out. All right, so that's what it does. So the update method needs to be out for now. And because the update method needs to be out, then start facing we're not using, because we're not using the is start facing thing. And on initialize, where we do the facing is equal to start facing, all that stuff, because we're not using it, could be commented out, retroactively. But now we have our stuff working. Okay, next, what I want to do is when I've selected a card, I need to have a selection state. So the cards, each card now is going to have is selected or is not selected, right? So it's going to have another Boolean. So we're going to say public bool is selected, right? And by default, we're going to say that in the initialized method that is selected is going to be false. We're going to say that. It's only going to happen once. We're going to say by default, we're making sure that it's not selected. When I click onto it for the first time, it's going to be selected. All right, so let's do that. So we're going to say that I'm clicking onto it. That's in here, get mouse button down. It's going to flip and it's going to be is selected. So is selected is going to be true. Okay. And if selected is true, we're going to say that we want to colorize the entire card and make it green. How do we do that? So we can check that in the update method. That we can check. And in the update method of our code, which is way up here, we can change the color value of the shader, right? So just to give you a sense of where that is, if you look at the card, any card, you have a material, and the material itself has a color shader attached to it. Okay, so material and the rendering information is here as well, right? So I want to change, as an example, the material object, the card's material, which is this card's material here, right? Which is a mobile diffuse material. That's what it is. I want to make it so that we can change the color itself. One thing to note is that this mobile diffuse material, which is the thing we got from the package, right? It does not include color, all right? So it doesn't include that. Could I change this mobile diffuse material to something like standard shader, and will that mess us up? Well, what it does is it needs light now. It takes away from that, what it looked like before. If I change the card's material to standard, right? So what about if it was unlit? So if I said something like, well, I want, a color, that's what unlit looks like, right? So just to show you the shader parts, so that's unlit. That's standard, right? And notice that the albedo for the standard is some other color. So I want to make it so that it's white. You can make the color change, whatever it was. The default color was some other color, but I want to make it white. So this is kind of like transparent, if you will. Right, see how that works? So again, what I did was I changed the card's material to a standard shader, and I changed the albedo channel so that the color value is white. Everything is white, 111. Okay. Okay, now that I have the color channel, then I want to change the color, of the shader itself to some other color, right? And I want to get the renderer to do that. So that's inside the card itself. So in the color in the card has reference to the renderer, and then in here you can't see it, but we're going to have access to the material color. Let's do that. Save. And then in our code, here's the code that I want to put in here. I'll leave the commented out code for now. And I want to say something like if is selected, if that's true, if we're selected, then I want to change the color. So I need access to the renderer for this. And so up here, again, in a private Boolean, I want to say that private, and then I'll say renderer. Here's my renderer. We'll call it renderer. Okay. Notice that it takes away, this is keyword. It says cart hides inherited member component renderer. I'd rather do it this way. I don't care if it hides it. And then I want to do the same thing I did here, which is renderer is equal to get component renderer, which gets a reference to the renderer component that's inside of each of the cards. Okay, that's what it's going to do. Right. And then I'm going to say if selected, then I want to say renderer.material, renderer.material, and I want to set the color value of the material, and the color name is underscore color. This is the actual name of the property in the shader, and I want to change it to a color value, which is going to be color.green. Okay, so let's see if we can just select it one time and see what happens. All right, so let's see if we can, if I select it, if I click onto it, then it turns green, the whole card. Let's try that. If I hover over, if I click onto it, it becomes green, right? And I can do that with all of them, green, 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 right? But I can't turn them back if they're not selected. And by the way, here's something else. These cards are all facing up, and in your assignment, they should all be facing down by default. So that's kind of something that we haven't done, because by default, all of these are facing up. So really, at the end of the day, we should initialize these, all of them, with a rotation on the Z-axis by 180 degrees, just to make them all face down like this. This is how this should look. And just to give you the same effect that you would have in your card matching. So if I said, okay, I want to select this one. Okay, well, that was weird because we have to match the default facing with what we had. That's why we had to click it twice. So this is what it should look like. And then if I click on to the new one, it should look like this. And are they the same? No. Okay, so this is kind of a really heavy outline. I don't like the green material so much. So how do I make it so it's my own color? First of all, let's fix the flipping, right? So somewhere is face up should be set to false starting off. So again, initializing is face up is true. We're going to say that is face up is false by default in the initialization step. And let me just take these so that they're the first thing that we do, which is way up here. So I selected as false, is face up is false. It's face down because all of our cards from now on, we're going to set them up so they're all face down. Okay, when they're dealt. Okay. Okay, very good. And so now, since they're all face down, right, then what I want to do is when I click on it, it's not going to be a color green, but some other color of ours. So how do I make my own color? How do I do that? So, and you can kind of make this, I recommend making a color that you can select. So again, selection properties will make a public color. We'll call this the selection color. It'll be color like spelled like Canadian color. Okay. Just to make it different. And selection color is something that we want to use here inside of this selection color. Okay. But warning, selection color is bad because if I go back to here, so each of the cards has a selection color. Let me just, dim these out for a second. Notice the selection color is black by default. That's not good. So let's change that. So we can go in here and notice immediately if I want to make it a green color, but I don't want to make it fully green, be careful because the alpha transparency by default down here is 0. Please turn it on manually to 1. Otherwise, even if you select the color, it'll be always 0, right? So there's my color. And you can see it's too bright. So I want to kind of bring that color value down closer to the white area here, like a kind of a color that's light green, closer to white. And my color value that I'm using is something like 0.8 on the green. And the blue value is, it says like 0.75. If I make it 0.8 as well. So it's kind of like a blue-green value that's kind of a little bit white. So 0.8, 1 for green. Red is 0.8, 1 is green, 0.8 for blue, and 1 for alpha. That's the color. The hexadecimal value is CCFFCC, which is so that your color can match mine. Okay. So if I press play. And now if I select the color, it's black. Black, black, black. Oh, what? What happened? Why did this change, but none of the other ones did? Well, because we only changed it for this one, and we didn't change it for the other ones, right? So what we want to do is we want to make that change so that all of them, from a card perspective, all of them have this set up. And again, from an override perspective, be careful. It just changes the card script, right? So that the default script is changed. What this means is we need to make a massive change to all of the prefabs so that it's this CC, FF, CC, as opposed to just some of them. So that means all of these have to also be changed because it's still black. So CC, FF, CC, you can just change it down here. CC, FF, CC. That's the quick way of doing it in hexadecimal. And it changes all of those. And then what we want to do is go into our, but we want to go into our prefabs in cards and do them for all of them. So we're going to select all these and all of the color values. We want to change now to CC, FF, CC. You can also change it programmatically, but I find that you're better off doing this. So just a few clicks. Okay. I don't care about this, but we'll change it anyway. Did I add cards to these? I don't think I'm even not even using jokers. Okay. And spades. Okay, so that's all done. All the prefabs are done. And now we should be able to do that without having a big problem. So we decided on a color that we can kind of check to see what the color looks like. Now we want to make it so that when they're not selected, right, as an example, it turns back from this green color, it turns back to the normal white color. Okay. So what about if it's not selected? Well, we would put an else, right? And again, this is bad because we want to make this color go back to white. So that would be the color white that we want to use, right? That's what we want to use. That's fully on, all things on again. But it's telling you that this is inefficient. What is another way to code this thing? That's not this. We did it kind of with the ternary operator before. You can clearly just let ReSharper do it for you. And if I say convert it to an if call, it'll look like one line like this, which is the way to go. I'm just going to comment. I'm just going to get rid of these now. I don't need that in my update. And this changes the selection. So this is kind of make it from, if it's selected, then I change the selection color, whatever the selection color we chose was. Otherwise, let's make it white. Let's see if this works. Again, little tiny effects, but still valid. Okay, so, right? And what happens if I'm not selected? How do I know that I'm not selected? Well, I need to be able to turn selection off somehow. All right, so how do I turn the selection off? When I flip the card over again, right? When it's flipped over, if is face up is down, then clearly I'm not selected. Where do I put that? I could check them the flip. I could check that here. I could say something like if not is face up. So if it's face down, I could put that here, and I can say that is selected is equal to false. So I can say if it's face down, it's not selected, right? If it's face up, it's going to glow green and it's selected. All right. So this is a way of doing it as well. And let's try that again. So again, hovering basically tells you where your mouse is. Clicking it selects it, unclicking it, it should be deselected, right? But let's see what that card says. Let's see spade. Is it selected? It's still selected. So how come it didn't change anything? I mean, I wrote the code, right? So why does this not turn back? How come? Let's look at the code. So if not is face up, is face up is not, if it's not, it's turned over, right? As an example, then is selected is false. When is this going to happen? Am I ever going to get to the point where this is going to be true, is face up? Because is face up is equal to not is face up, right? Whatever and what this means, this is the opposite. Whatever it is, it's not, okay? So why isn't this happening? Why is selected not is false? And when did it become true anyway, right? Well, we say that my input, and then when I click onto it, anytime I click onto it, I flip it. Right? So this isn't where it should be, should it? Because is selected is true. Well, that should happen on flip. And so what we can say is that if is face up, right? Is selected as false, else, oh my God, we're going to use that if else statement. Else, then is selected is we can say is selected is true, but now it's going to go, man, no, this is bad, Tom, right? Because now we can convert it back into some kind of if operator that really just looks like this. If is selected, it's face up. If it's face up, it's selected. If it's face down, it's not selected, right? Nice and simple, which is kind of a weird and wonderful way of making this work. Okay, save. And let's try this again. So, right? And you may not like that. You know, you may not like that it's selected or whatever. It's just showing because you're flipping it over, right? And this is part of our card flipping game that we're making, right? Okay. Now, let's put this up on GitHub, and then the last part, I want you to help me with some code. Git add dot git commit -m, and I'll say added selection color parts. Git push. So that basically decides whether it's selected or not, and also gives us feedback that it's selected. Okay, because so the feedback is if it's this green color. If you don't like the green color, you can make it into some other color. For example, if you feel this is still too bright, that's okay. The other thing to do is, what if you don't like that selection color at all for your game? This is something you might want to try. Maybe you just want to leave this thing selected, this outline selected, or maybe you want to choose another outline that you want to set up, right? That stays on if you click on it, right? So you can try and fool with the code to make it happen. So let's say, for example, if it's selected, it's blue. If I click onto it, it stays blue, the outline. And if I deselect it, if I click onto it again, if it flips over, it's nothing. It looks like this. And so there is no color coding on this thing at all, because maybe you don't like the fact that it's green. Okay, totally up to you. I'm just using this shading so that you can see that it's selected or not. Okay, next part. And we're kind of running a little bit behind today, and I do apologize because of my little divergence. I want to think about the deck class, and I want to look at your assignment requirements for this to start coding this thing. So again, if I look at the assignment requirements that I posted, right? Let's take a look. So it says that I need to put together a standard deck class. Let's start putting this together right now, all right? So the standard deck class is what I want to put together, and let's do it. So going back to this, let's start coding it. I'm going to go into scripts, and let's just, for our purposes, let's make a brand new folder, please. And for the folder, I want to put like external scripts, so I don't have to look at someone else's scripts. And I want to take these two scripts here and put them in there. We might have other ones throughout the semester, and I don't want to look at someone else's scripts all the time. So I want to only see our scripts. The class diagram that I had here was only for our purposes. So again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say another folder. We'll call this diagrams. And if I want to have other diagrams in here later on, we can use that. We may have other diagrams when we do further stuff here. I want to make a brand new C# script now as I'm cleaning up. And let's call this C# script standard deck. Okay, there's a standard deck class. Again, this is satisfying some of the requirements for your assignment, which is what I want to try and help you with. Okay, so this is standard deck class. Now, here's curious for you, right? It didn't say anywhere here that my standard deck class is going to be assigned to anything, right? I almost want to make a standard deck class that is going to be used as in composition. Okay, question. What's the difference between inheritance and composition? Does anyone remember or know? Have you guys been taught this? I know, Ren, you said don't assume anything. But do you guys know what inheritance and composition is? Does anyone know? Composition.
We know that stuff inherits, but composition, no.
James, you said something? Sorry.
The inheritance, yes, I understand that. It's basically everything is going to inherit everything from a parent or a prefab or something like that.
Okay.
And everything down the line from that is always going to have those same properties as default.
Okay, awesome. So composition is not inheritance. Composition is when I want to compose the class with other objects. So that means I'm not going to use standard deck it's not going to inherit. Standard deck is never going to be inherited. I'm going to use it as an object that I want to do something with, which means if it's never going to be inherited from, the question is, do I want to attach the standard deck? That's the question you have to ask, to some other game object. And if the answer is no, I'm not going to attach the standard deck to a game object, right? But maybe I'm going to use the standard deck somewhere, right? Then we don't need to make it of type mono behavior. Mono behavior, the only type we want to use, the only time we want to use mono behavior here, going back to this, is if I'm going to attach an object like standard deck to an object like game object. Let's assume for a second, just for now, that we're not going to do that. So let's just say that mono behavior is not the thing, okay? And that means we don't need the update and the start functions because this is a class of our own that we're going to make, right? So whenever we make a public class, remember what we need. We need a constructor function, right? We need some public properties. We need some public methods. We need some, maybe some private methods, right? This is kind of a little bit of an outline here. And maybe some private instance members or fields, like they're called, right? Public properties are usually getters and setters, which are also called accessors and mutators. Okay, that's what they're called. All right, so that's what we want to make, a standard deck class. In the instructions, it's telling us that we want to make a default constructor that calls the initialize method. Okay, so we need two things. We need a public constructor. The constructor is going to be standard deck. Okay. And we also need an initialize method. Let's make it public for now. Okay, we're going to call the initialize method from the default constructor. So whenever we make a standard deck, we're going to initialize. Okay, and that takes care of this, right? And initialize method may only be called at any time, may be called at any time. That means it must be public, right? To set or reset the deck to 52 standard playing cards. After calling initialize, the object should contain all 52 unique cards, no duplicates. Whoa, what do I need? I need some kind of structure that this is going to be, right? In Java, here's something really interesting. The standard deck could actually be inherited from a list or something else. Can I do that? Can I say like standard deck inherits from a list of type game objects? Can I do that here? And the answer is you can. That means the standard deck is a list. That's what it is. It's a list plus it's everything else. A list of type cards or whatever it's going to be. This is a way of doing it for sure, right? Where we can access the standard deck just like it's a list. We can also make a list. There's other data structures that are out there we're going to learn about. And one of them is a queue. Okay, so let me talk about a queue. So if I say queue data structure, if you were to look at that and see what it looks like, it has a structure of first in, first out, first come, first served. Okay, that's not really true. We talked about this last time. That's not really true of a stack, which is kind of like what a stack of cards is. So really, we want to make a stack. If we're going to make a standard deck, we should make it a stack, right? So we can say that it's a stack of type game object, right? Well, we can take it further. We can say it's a stack of type card. Can we not? Card is our custom card class, and standard deck is of type card, right? A stack of type cards. When we initialize, then we want to build our card up. And one thing we want to do is we want to be able to load all the cards into the deck for the first time. Okay, just keeping an eye on the time here. So how do we load stuff from our folders? Well, we know we want to load them from the resources prefabs folder. That's where they are. And then they have individual cards in clubs, diamonds, hearts, and spades. That's what we have right now, okay? To make it easier, right, it would be nice if we said something like prefabs, cards, and then all the cards would be in the same spot. Why would I have to have clubs, diamonds, hearts, and spades? It's another level of difficulty for us. So for this, what I want you to do is take all of these cards here and put them inside of just the cards folder, all the diamonds, and get rid of all and put them all inside the cards folder, all the hearts and put them inside of the cards folder, and all the spades, put these all inside the cards folder. It's going to make our lives a little easier. Okay. And what we want to do is we want to load up all those card images and assign them to all those prefabs, right? Everything that's in the cards folder. We want to load up all those prefabs and assign them to the list, you know, of type the stack that we're going to make, right? So let's think of that. Etc. is the black joker, and there's also a plastic blue card and a plastic red card and the red joker. I mean, I personally don't think we need the red joker or the black joker or any of this stuff. Let's just leave it where it is. But the clubs, diamonds, hearts, and spades folders, we can now remove. We don't need them anymore. All we need is the cards that are within them, like all these. These are all the cards in one spot, right? All right. So now I want to load them in, and I want to load them in into my standard deck of cards. I want to load them in order, and remember that the way they're written is club to club Q, all right, and diamond to diamond Q, and heart to heart Q. We have all these spade to spade Q. All right, these are the things that we want. So it's almost like I want to load all of them up, and I want to add them to the queue, add them to the stack. So if I said something like, first of all, stacks, what methods do I have? If I go this dot, you can see that I have push and I have pop. Okay, so push pushes the card on top of the, the top of the card. So it inserts an object at the top of the stack. That's what it does. So I want to do something like this. I want to say push, and I want to use something like resources dot load. And when I resources dot load, I want to load a type of object, which is a game object. And the object that's going to be named in the game object is something like the name of the folder. So resources, prefabs, card, slash, and then the name of the card. So, example would be something like what we have. So here would be, club, right? And then club would be the first thing that we're doing, right? And then we're going to go to the next one, which is in order, diamond, alphabetical, heart, and then spade. Those are the ones that we want, right? Well, what we want is nice, but it'd be nice if we were to take these things and put them inside of some kind of array, right? Because we don't want to hard code it like this, right? And when I load up this resource, I want to load this up because we're saying it's of type card. That's what we're saying. And we want to convert it. Instead of it being a game object, it'd be nice if it was a card because I'm adding it to this stack. That's what it is. For now, to simplify, let's make it, instead of a stack of cards, we're going to say make a stack of game object. If we did that, the error goes away. Okay. We're going to come back to this. So I don't want to hard code this thing. It'd be nice if we said that we had a little array, some kind of string array. So we'll say var, right? And we'll call this the card, we'll call it suits. And we're going to say that suits, right? Just like we did in the cards thing, we kind of did this, right, is a new array that's initialized. So we're going to say back to this is a new array with an initializer that we're going to say is the suits in order. And it should match exactly what it has here: club, diamond, heart, and spade. Club, diamond, heart, and spade. Okay. So this is in order 0, 1, 2, 3, which means I could use a for loop now, right? And I can use a for loop now. It's trying to guess what I want, and it's not guessing properly. And I want it to go from I to my suits dot length 0, 1, 2, 3. That's what it's going to go. And then I want to push the card in here, which is I'm going to add in here. I want to add in the suits. And the suits that it's going to be added in is I. So suits I is what's going to happen. We need to make this a raw string, which is going to make it so that I can interpolate whatever this thing is, club, diamond, heart, spade, in here. This is the first part, followed by an underscore. And then we want to do in order. So yeah, this would load up, the suit, but I want to go like, I want to count. I want to say like a, whatever it's going to be. Well, this would be another variable, another var, and we're going to call this ranks. Ranks. We're repeating ourselves though a little bit, right? But let's try it anyway. So whenever I repeat myself, I always like question, should I repeat myself? And it's in that order. It's in 2 all the way to ace jack. It says so 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then ace jack king queen. So let's do that. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Be sharper. Ace, jack, queen, king. Make sure that's the exact order that it's listed inside the folder structure. That's what I'm doing here, okay? And what this is going to do now is I have ranks. So this plus ranks I is what's going to go there. And now I can loop through and I can push all the cards into my game object, which is going to be my stack of game objects in reverse order. So that means the top of the stack is going to have a spade of the queen of spades. That's going to be at the top of the stack. Okay. And that is going to be my initialize method. So every single time I do that, I want the initialize method to be called. I want to do this kind of stuff. And yes, I could certainly do this. But maybe I want to use suits and ranks again. So I want to take these out of here and I want to put them somewhere like at the top, maybe somewhere here, right? And I can't use var because var is only for variables that are random and you can't use it there. I could use private, right? But then I got to specify the type. So private suits, which is what type? A string array, right? That's what I want. That's what I would put up here, string array. And here I've initialized, it says, if I hover over, it says make field suits read only and rename to underscore suits because it's a private member. Yeah, I like that. Let's do that for this one too. It's just going to rename it to this underscore suits and ranks. So you can see that that is what's going to go here. And then I typically would want to separate the initialization like this in my standard deck. I want to do this part separately, like down here. So I'm going to say something like underscore suits is equal to, and then all of this, right? And I'll do the same thing with underscore ranks. So I'm going to grab all of this and just, put it in place there. And I do that because it's better to separate your initialization compared to this. Now, it's also giving me a little bit of an error. It says, hey, make field suits read only because I'm not really using it, as anything else other than something I'm going to use to access. And when we come down to it, these almost look like enums. fact, they are enums in many ways, they're enums, right? And we kind of use something similar here, right? With this is kind of another enum, right? And instead of using an array, maybe later, another time, we can convert these to enums as opposed to what we have here. But let's continue. So this is what this does. This loads up everything. One other thing that I want to do is I want to empty the stack. Every time I call initialize, I want to do something like, first of all, I want to loop through each of these things. So let's clear. Let's make a clean function. So make a public. Actually, I'll make it a private method. It's something that we're going to take care of. So sorry, I know I'm running overtime. I apologize, guys. Give me a few more minutes. I want to make a private void clean method. And my clean method, what it's going to do is it's going to loop through each item in my stack and pop everything off the stack. That's what it's going to do. So it's going to say, and what I also want to do is as I pop stuff up the stack, I also want to destroy the game object. I want to do that. I want to kind of get rid of everything from the whatever that's inside of the that's in the deck already. I want to get rid of it all. I need to do this because even though I pop stuff off the stack, the game object doesn't disappear, right? So I'm going to say something like for each, right? And I want to do for each object in this, right? Because this itself is a stack of type game objects. Then I want to say for every card in this, for every card in the stack, I want to do two things. I want to pop the card off, but if I pop, right, then what happens is as soon as I pop it off the stack, then it's gone. Like if I hover over pop, it doesn't return anything. Like it says game object stack, right? And it should return the game object. Yeah, look, take a look. Pop returns the game object out. There it is. So I can say that var, or we can say that I'm popping the card off every card. I'm popping the card off of the stack. I'm looping through for each card and I'm popping it off. But if I use a for each loop to do this and I'm popping them off the stack, I want to like destroy the game object. So I could do this, or I could just simply say destroy. And I want to do this destroy stuff, but I can't use destroy because my class is not of type mono behavior. I don't have access to initialize and destroy and stuff. So I'd have to be very specific. I'd have to say something like mono behavior dot destroy part. And it says that it's a base class and it says access to stack member is a derived type, blah, 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 leave it alone. Mono behavior destroy card. So it destroys the card for each card. So all the cards now are empty. And then what I want to do afterwards is I want to clear. So I want to say something like, so I want to clear the object. And what clear does is it removes everything from the stack. It just kills everything in the stack itself. When I call clean, it destroys all the game objects, right? And it does this. Okay. This, right? This prefab is what this is, right? These prefabs. I load a prefab, and that's what these things are, right? But I never instantiated anything. So here, before I do this, I need to say something like var card is equal to, and I want to resources load this. So this is my card prefab. That's what this is. And then when I push it, I want to initialize. So I want to say then var card is equal to instantiate. So it's going to be a mono behavior dot instantiate the card prefab. If I don't instantiate it, it's not going to be in the scene, right? So that's what I want the card prefab to be, right? Funny thing is, if I instantiate it, it actually goes in the scene itself, right? So I want to, it's in the scene. And I want to disable the card. So I want to say something like, so card dot set active is false. So it's not active when I put it in the stack. It's inactive, which means it's not going to be shown in the scene right away, right? And then I want to push the card onto the stack. That's what I'm going to do. Okay. So that's what initialize does. Initialize will loop through, load up all the cards for the first time, and then instantiate them, right? And, kind of put them here. And this is okay. Then the negative thing around this is every single time I initialize, I'm going to access the operating system again and load stuff in. And it's not like I ever need to do this again. I should only have to do this one time. It's almost like I want to create a list of cards that I can just copy over. That might be better, right? And that can be done on an awake function. If we're having an awake function or something else like that, maybe almost like load cards could be a method too. So I'm going to do that and then we'll stop for the day. Okay, so maybe I need a private method. And the private method is going to be something like load. And the load method that we're going to use is going to do all of this. Each card prefab is going to be added in instead of doing it this way. Maybe what I need to keep is a private object, a private list of cards that I want to copy. I want to copy it from a list to a stack. I want to go, and this way I can go through each object in the list, and then I can just, copy it into my cards every single time. So I only do this once, which is more efficient. So again, I want to make a private list of type game object. I'm making it a list this time, and it's going to be cards. Sure. These are the cards that are in my that I'm going to keep track of, right? And these can be card prefabs. That's what they are, right? Card prefabs. And then the card prefab list needs to be initialized. So down in here, I would say something like underscore card prefabs is equal to a new list of game objects, because this creates an empty container of type of list game object type. Okay, that's what this does. You need to make this empty container first before we add stuff to the list, right? And then in my load method, I can do some of this. So I can say that, hey, card prefab, I want to do this for loop. Let's copy this for, actually I'll copy the whole thing and I'll decimate it. It's easy to destroy than to build. So I want to say something like, I don't need to do all of this. I just want to get the prefab, right? And I want to instantiate it and hold it inside the list. So I don't need this part. Actually, I do need this part, right? But this part here is going to, instead of going card prefab is equal to this, right? And I add it to the stack, I'm going to say underscore card prefabs dot add card prefabs dot add, and then it's card, right? So this adds it to a list, right? That's what load does. And load I only do one time. Okay, so I never do that again. I can also make this var, which the compiler likes more. So this is the load method. It loads everything up. Nice. And then after I have my load method, I can simplify this. My initialize method will be different, right? I already loaded all the cards and I'm doing that here. So I'm going to say something like load, right? So I loaded all my cards up. I initialize now my deck for the first time. And that is when I want to push each card in the list. I want to make a copy of it, right? And I want to push each of those things onto the deck, right? So now this is something different. I'm making a copy, right? A copy of the list onto the deck. So if I want to copy stuff, how do I do it? So back to this. So I want to copy, there's a copy constructor for this. I want to copy the list C#, right? To a stack, right? That's what I want to do. Copy a list to a stack in C#. How do I clone a generic list? And notice that there is a stack copy to, right? Method, right? There's a stack clone method. All right. There's some stuff that's out there that can help us do some work for us, as opposed to the way we're doing it. So how do I clone a generic list in C#? Well, if you look here, it's lists, your type lists is equal to a new And then notice that there is something called old list, right? That's how you can clone one thing to the other thing, right? That is definitely a way of doing it. But stacks have this copy to function, right? Where I can say something like, I want to copy from one thing to the other. So it basically says copies the stack to an existing one-dimensional array, right? Starting at the specific array index, whatever that is, copy to. That's what that's copy to thing is. So there's lots of little methods here that do that. We can also kind of say to array, I can convert a stack to an array, right? And wouldn't it be nice if I had a method that I can convert to a list? So I want to go from a list to a stack. Is there something like that I can do that? So I want to kind of loop through. I can also loop through, but I want to copy each object. I want to copy each game object, if you will, right? So I'm doing a lot of work here with this piece, right? Because I'm not only loading it up, right, but I'm instantiating, and I have to do that in order for me to make a list of type game object. Otherwise, I'm going to have a prefab that does nothing, right? So suggestions, what do you recommend? How do I copy? I don't want it, because remember, each of these objects is a reference type, which means if I add it and I destroy it next time, it's gone. It's destroyed. See you later, right? I want to keep a copy fresh inside the deck that I can regenerate every single time. So what do I do there? How do I copy a resource from my list to the stack? So let's talk about Unity. Maybe Unity has a copy game object. So like a duplicate. Unity copy game object, right? So how do I do that? So how to duplicate a game object using scripting. And then it says, instantiate is the duplicate command in Unity. If the object is complicated with lots of meshes and whatever, it will take some time. There's no way around that. If instantiate is too slow for you, you should instantiate all at the beginning, and just move, enable, disable them as you need them. Now this is different. That means we're never going to destroy anything. We're just going to disable it, right? And put it back inside of the thing. And that's kind of like an object pooling pattern that you and I are going to work on in the second half of semester. I want something nice and easy for this one to work. So notice that it says I can instantiate, and then we have the game object, you know, which is something that I want to use to do that. That's the prefab that I want to make. So is there a way of doing this thing? Is there a way of, you know, instantiating an object that's already been instantiated? Can I make a copy? And so what it says is you can, right? So the way to do that is, we don't want to, we already did this part. We want to do something else. We want to do a for each loop. And for each card, and the card prefab, for each card and cards prefab, card prefabs, right? Then I want to make a brand new object. I want to say that I want to push that card, right? And I want to instantiate mono behavior dot instantiate that object, which is the original one, whatever that was before, that card. Right, so that's kind of a copy. So this does basically creates a brand new game object based on the original one, whatever that was. Okay. Okay, this is a way of doing it, but I recommend always to make a temporary card. So var card or temp is equal to this, right? So we're getting a temp card, and we're going to make that temp card, and we're going to set it as inactive. Temp card dot is active, or set active to false. We're going to make sure it's false, it's inactive, and we're going to take that and push it onto our stack temp card. So why am I doing it twice? Because this way it's easy for me, right? Because when I clean, I'm destroying only the card in this thing, but I'm never destroying the card in my list. My lists are always the same. I never have to I never have to load the list twice. I'm only loading the list once, right? And again, this is an efficiency thing, right? I could have left it the way it was before and just kept loading stuff in and destroying stuff, but it's really ugly. It's you know, it's pretty bad. All right, so this is pretty cool. I've got an initialize, I've got a clean method that I added in, some way of cleaning it up. I have a load method that loads it in. This is outside of what I've asked you to do here, right? Because there's some other things that I want to do. And we're just doing this. That's what we're doing so far, just the initialize method. Last thing for today. I want to be able to display the cards in the list. That's what I want to do. I want to display the cards in the list. So how do I do that? So in the code, I want to have a display method. So it's going to be public. So I can display the cards currently in the deck. Public void display. And then what it's going to do is it's going to go for each. And that's inside of this for every card. For every card in this deck. That's what this means. I want to print the card. Print mono behavior, but it's not mono behavior right now. Print. Yes, that's the one I want. The card. What happens mono behavior? If you take mono behavior away, woohoo, right? All right, so this is what we're going to do now. So this is the standard deck so far. We're not finished it. I'm going to put this up on GitHub so you have it. So we're going to say clear git add dot git commit -m, and we'll say added standard deck v1 git push. We have it, our first version of the standard deck that's pushed. Let's test it, and then we're done. So how do we test it? We have our game controller, right? And our game controller doesn't do much anymore, right? It's nothing. There's nothing in the game controller at all. Let's add a script that helps us out with the game control with the standard deck. So I'm going to make a brand new script called game controller. Script is not going to do much, all right? So the game controller script, I'm going to take that game controller script and put it on top of that. So the game controller has the empty game controller script onto it. Double click. What I want to do is I want to make a brand new standard deck. So I'm going to say that the standard deck, right, we'll call this deck, is equal to a new standard deck. And I want to say that deck dot display. All right, and let's see what that does. All right, and if everything works, we don't need the update method for now. If everything works, then we should be able to see a list of cards that I've copied from my card list that's inside the standard deck to my stack, okay, which is what I want to do. All right, let's see if this works. And we should be okay. And there's going to be some issues with this. Okay, so let's run this. And it says the object you want to instantiate is null, right? And why is it null? And it says that here when we're loading, right? My game objects, prefabs, card, suits, 0, right? And then ranks and all this kind of stuff is blank, which means we didn't find anything. We wanted to instantiate something that didn't work. That we tried to load, this is our first method to try and load, and we didn't make it work. Again, let's check to see what it looks like. Maybe we made a mistake. So again, back to Unity, and what we're looking at is the resources folder, right? In the prefabs folder, in the cards folder. So prefabs cards, prefabs card. That's a mistake. That's a mistake there. Prefabs cards is where it has to go. And let's try it again. That's why it didn't work. It was looking in the wrong folder. Okay, so let's try it again. play. And then you look through, we have only these ones. Spade 5 clone, heart 4 clone, diamond 3 clone, club 2 clone. That's all it added in. Spade 5, heart 4, diamond 3, club 2. What? Well, of course it did that, because we never looped through everything, right? We need to do 2 arrays to load it in, right? The first array does all the cards and the ranks, and the second array does the ranks. So we need, sorry, the second for loop. So the first one, I, is one thing, but we want to do another for loop with J that does the upper length of each of the cards. So for every suit, there is a ranks dot length, right? I'm going to take this, we're going to put this inside here. Okay. So it's I for the suits and J for the ranks. And so what this is going to do, let's make this a var. What this is going to do is it's going to loop through each one. I for suits and J for ranks. We could have named these differently too, if you really wanted to, right? But this should be better. And there's also some exercises here that telling us that we can do something different here. Let's go back and try it again first. So again, going back to here, and we'll clear it, and we'll press play, and we should see a full list of cards first. Yay, that's better. Right, that's what I was hoping we would get. So we get king, queen, jack, ace, spade, king, queen, jack, ace. Remember, in reverse order: king, queen, jack, ace, 10, 9. And by the way, not only did we get that, but we got all of these in the game disabled in the game, right? And why? Because they've all been, they're there. If I actually enable it, then we should start seeing them come into play, right? See that? So these are all the stuff that are in the game, and we need them to be placed somewhere. So it actually loaded them up and made this whole deck of cards here, right? That is being managed by my, it's got to instantiate and do something with it, right? So these are actual objects that have been created. Okay, cool. So then this is good. We've set it active to false, but we also need to set a parent. We need to set a parent. We don't have a card parent, but we do have cards here, right? So we can set the parent to cards, but we need to set the parent up here, right, for the first time. So when we instantiate our standard deck, we need a reference, a public reference for the first time, or something like that, where we keep a reference for the card that we're going to add into. Well, that means that we want a private member, right, called, which is of type transform. So mono behavior dot transform. So it's actually a transform. I think it's just transform. Yeah. Private transform. How did it get? I guess Unity Engine has been is allowed. No problem. Private transform. We're going to call this parent, card parent. There we go. And the card parent, we're going to instantiate here like this. We're going to say that card parent is equal to game object find, and find is going to have a name that's going to be called cards dot transform. Let's make sure that that's correct. Cards, yes, it is. So card parent is a game object. We're going to get the transform from that. And then what I can say is once we have our card parent, then if I go down here when we load, before we add the card prefabs, to the list, we can say something like card dot transform dot set parents to card parent. And we can change card parent so that it is private, because that's what it is. Refactor rename. Make card parent with an underscore, since everything else is with an underscore. So that's card parent. Okay. And then let's see what happens when we set the parent to card parent. That means all the cards will be inside of that little cards folder. Let's see how that works. So back to this and press play, and right. So now it's inside of that parents thing. But we also have a clone, right? Take a look at this. We have cards, right? And then we have these other ones. And these are clones of clones of clones, right? And each one of these things, we're going to have a darn issue, my friends, right? What's the issue that I'm going to have? We did it, but we have issues. I told you we're going to have issues. Well, when we loaded the card, right, then the card should have this name. So one thing we need to do is when we instantiate for the first time, we made the copies. We're going to say that the card.name, right, is also something we want to preserve. We want to say the card.name is equal to, again, prefabs. We don't care about that, but we definitely want to use this structure, which is a $ quotation. And we're going to say we want to take this part right here, and we want to populate it inside of there. Because if we didn't do this, undo, if we don't do this, then cards are going to have a clone on the end. And we use the card name to associate the value and the rank and all that stuff in our card class. And that would be a real goddamn issue. Huge, right? Save. Let's try this again and see what happens now when we assign the name manually. All right, so run. And this is good. This is good. But this is not good. This is not good, right? Because this is a clone of everything else we made, right? This clone is the copy we made from our list to our stack, right? And the stack is up here and the list is in here, right? And that's bad, right? And so you can see where this is going, right? We can keep working on this for all day, but this functionality that we're creating is what I'm helping you to do, because I know it's complex, right? What I've asked. And it's more complex than you think. When you looked at my little assignment, it looks pretty easy, but actually there's some things here, right? So where that is this, and this is the next part, right? For each card in card prefabs, I want to instantiate a new one, I make a clone of that card, but I don't want the clone name to be what it is, right? I want to remove clone from the card. Whatever the card name is what the card name is going to be, right? So I want to say that it's pretty simple to do, because when we have the card name, I can say that the temp card dot name is equal to the name of the card. That's going to be the way we will do it. So we don't have to go list through. We've already done that, the heavy lifting. So we have to do that again. And we also need to put them in the card parent. So we instantiate, we can say that temp card dot transform dot parent is equal to, or set parent, sorry, set parent is equal to the card parent. All right, so that way they're all inside of the same area there. It's going to be confusing because we have a double set of cards in there in the hierarchy, but we need to hide them somewhere as we're playing the game, right? So save. And let's try this out now. And wonderfully, we have now made our initial list followed by our second list, right? So notice that this is where we wanted to do it. So this is clubs to K, diamonds to K, hearts, spades, and then a second copy, clubs, diamonds, and then hearts and spades. And I made that second copy, so double the amount of game objects, because I never want to load it from my operating system again. I just want to copy paste again. And this way it just regenerates everything. And I never have to reset the deck ever again. Okay. At least the same way. So now this is good. And I don't need to do I don't need to call my game controller. I don't need to call the deck display anymore because I've just included a simple deck, which is a standard deck. And this, my friends, is an example of composition, right? Because I'm composing my game controller class with a new object of type deck, standard deck. There's no inheritance. I've made my standard deck. My standard deck is using inheritance. It is a stack type of type game object, right? And each game object that I load in the deck is a card. Right? I'm going to put this up on GitHub, and that's it for today. Thank you so much for sticking around longer. I know I ate some of your time. I do apologize, but I wanted you to have all this to make sure you're good. Git add dot. Git commit find SM. Any questions? Added. Standard. To. See. Any questions at all before you run away? If not, guys, thank you so much for sticking around. I'll have the updated lab report up like we normally do, and everything that we've done so far today in a much shortened order will be up there. Whew. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. I know we were running there at the end, and I do appreciate you guys.
I have a
sticking around.
week. I have a problem of ice weeks.
I'm sorry, say that
Ice
again.
weeks. Ice.
Yes.
I have files in my computer for each subject on my G drive, and I downloaded the card game file from iLearn into my problem solving with data structure and algorithm files. I didn't realize this until I was ready to add the game to my repository. So I copied the game to my C drive ICES folder. Now, if I open my card script in the game, now Visual Studio's 2019 version opens, and I am sure I wrote it in Visual Studio's 2022.
Yeah. You can always right click instead of double clicking. You can always right click. Are you talking about in Unity? It opens up in Visual Studio 2019.
Yes.
Let me stop recording this, and then for everyone else, guys, thank you so much.